Jinsha Group is also one of the best enterprises in Nanhai City. Naturally, it has independent office buildings. Su Xiaoyun likes classical buildings. Even the office buildings are built in the style of ancient Chinese architecture. The corners of each floor are covered with flying eaves and animals, and the unified dark gold exterior wall makes it look like a magnificent family. At the gate of the office building, there is a 7 or 8 meter high stone, carved into a wave shape, with the head of good intention of making water from gold. In the center of the stone, it is made of pure gold powder, with the 4 big words of Jinsha Group written in domineering manner. At the door of the office building, there are 3 or 5 groups of security guards patrolling, and the cameras are dense, so the guard is very strict. At this time, it was working time, and the building was full of people. Instead of rushing to act, Tian took a few turns around Jinsha Group to confirm the layout of the whole Jinsha Group, the distribution of security forces inside and the location of the monitoring room. Not only that, Tian also made a circle around the streets to check the evacuation route without surveillance cameras. After planning the route, Tian went to a small shop on the street and had a meal. Then he found a small park not far away and sat by the lake. After calming down, he began to practice breathing. In a flash of time, at midnight, Tian's figure appeared at the gate of Jinsha Company again. Brush. After glancing at the group building and finding that it was completely dark and empty, Tian immediately came to the monitoring room according to the plan of the day. He grasped the data transmission cable with both hands and pulled it hard. Click. A light blue electric spark flashed, the cable broke, all the monitoring screens in the monitoring room immediately became pitch black, and all the cameras became blind. What's the matter? Go out and have a look. What's wrong with the monitor? Almost at the same time, the sound of the security guards in the monitoring room was noisy, and then the security guards around rushed here. Take advantage of this opportunity, Tian speed to the extreme, like a floating shadow, quietly floated into the office building. As for the security guards of Jinsha Group, they did not find any abnormality at all. Tian is not unfamiliar with the layout of the office building, because he used to follow his father to work here or chat with Su Xiaoyun. Even if he closed his eyes, he would not go the wrong way. A few minutes later, Tian came to Su Xiaoyun's office on the 3rd floor. Tian closes his eyes, releases his mind and penetrates through the door. After confirming that there is no one in the office, he taps the lock cylinder with his hand, and the door opens suddenly. In the dark office, a faint blue light flickered in the corner. It's not the LCD screen of the safe. What can it be? Su Xiaoyun is as cautious as ever. Tian stoops and squats in front of the safe to sweep, and can't help feeling gently. Su Xiaoyun's safe is the most advanced one on the market. It needs fingerprints and iris to unlock. It's made of titanium alloy. It's extremely strong. Even a chainsaw can't cut it open. If it's a common thief, he will quit immediately when he sees it. Unfortunately, you met me. Tian smiles indifferently and takes out the fragment of the golden flying sword from his pocket. He infuses the magic power. The pale golden fragment immediately blooms a faint light. In a moment, he swipes to the safe with the fragment. In front of the fragments, the solid titanium alloy seems to turn into tender tofu. Just after 2 strokes, a piece of metal plate sniffs and drops, revealing the contents. This fragment is so sharp. Did you underestimate it before? It's not a magic weapon of semi-immortal soldier, but a real semi-immortal soldier? Tian looked at this scene, slightly tongued. The truth is just around the corner. The next second, without any hesitation, Tian quickly reached out and swept everything in the safe into a small cloth bag he had bought before he came to Jinsha building. Immediately after that, he quickly left the Jinsha building. From the beginning to the end, his figure was like a ghost. The security guards didn't even see a shadow. They were still busy repairing the cables of the monitoring equipment. After galloping for a while according to the established retreat, Tian appears nearly 5 blocks away from the Jinsha building. He is sure that even if Su Xiaoyun finds the safe stolen tomorrow and calls the police for investigation, he can't find any clues about himself. After that, he reaches for a taxi and goes back to his rental house. Su Xiaoyun, you'd better pray. It's none of your business.
Back to the rental house, Tian closed the door, turned on the light, picked up the bag, and emptied the contents to the ground. In the safe, in addition to some paper bags, there are many colorful foreign banknotes and more than 10 gold bars, but Tian didn't take a look at these things, so he picked up a thick book.
The account book of Jinsha Group. Tian opened the account book, looked at 2 pages, then frowned, ready to throw aside.
But when he saw the last page, his eyes were stunned.
On the last page of the account book, the cash on Jinsha Group's account book is only 5 million. 5 million, for ordinary people, this is really a lot of money. But Tian knows the details of Jinsha Group very well.
According to his father when he was alive, Su Xiaoyun's wealth is conservatively estimated to be 500 million, and the company's working capital should also be calculated in 100 million. But now, with a cash flow of nearly 100 million, there is only 5 million left. How can this not be surprising? Thinking of this, Tian did not leave the account book, but continued to read it.
It's strange. What has Su Xiaoyun done?
Every few years, he has such a large amount of expenses. After turning over the account book, Tian's brow turned into a knot in one's heart. When his parents were alive, his father taught him to read the company's account books and knew that it was a private account recorded by Su Xiaoyun. This thing can best reflect the real situation of enterprise operation. What's strange is that it's in this private account that every 3 years, Su Xiaoyun will withdraw a large amount of liquid cash from the company's books, leaving only the basic funds for the normal operation of the company. The more he gets to the back, the higher the frequency of Su Xiaoyun's withdrawal of working capital, from once every 3 years to once a year, and even more recently, once every 6 months. According to this frequency, Tian estimates that Su Xiaoyun's Jinsha company will undergo major changes within half a year.
This is exactly what Tian doesn't understand.
Even though Su Xiaoyun is the owner of Jinsha Group, he is not afraid to fish in the dry when he withdraws the company's cash flow so frequently.
Jinsha Group will be destroyed once, and Su's family will accumulate for many years and become empty completely?
Moreover, according to his father, Su Xiaoyun has no bad habits, does not gamble, and does not like luxury goods and collectibles. In short, he has none of the bad habits of the rich.
What is such a person doing to misappropriate such a large amount of funds?
But there is no doubt that, according to the performance of this private account, Su Xiaoyun is absolutely a complete pseudo-rich.
As for the Su family, it's just an empty shelf. February 19th. Tian looks at it one by one.
When his eyes fall on the time when Su Xiaoyun withdraws cash flow from Jinsha Group for the last time, his eyes are suddenly awe-inspiring.
This time note is the day after the parents were killed. The time of the two is so close, if it's just a coincidence, it's a bit too coincidental. Is it because Su Xiaoyun wanted to take the assets of the Yi family to fill his hole that he took this bad policy and started fighting against his parents? Tian frowned and put down the account book. After thinking a little, he reached out and opened another file bag. This is...
File bag opened. When Tian's eyes fell on the familiar signature at the bottom of the pages, his nose suddenly acid, tears fell down. 200 years of cultivation, countless times of life and death crisis, distress, he never shed tears, but this moment, but tears.
Yi Hong Lai. Mutz. 2 very simple names, but these are the names of Tian's parents. Tian has not seen their handwriting for 200 years. A man does not shed tears lightly, only because he is not sad. For a long time after a long time Tian Kai finally tidied up his mood, unfolded the documents that had been wet with tears, and carefully examined them. This is an IOU written by their parents when they bought a house for Yifeng and Li Huizhi, and the evidence left by their father when Yifeng ate from the company to enrich his own pocket. However, although my father and mother collected these, they never thought about doing anything to Yifeng. They just pity him and turn a blind eye to him. See that a piece of document, the vein of everything finally gradually unfolds in front of Tian. Presumably, it was with these documents that Su Xiaoyun successfully asked Xinyu to find the bank to seal up Yifeng's assets and house. Just, how did all these things of parents fall into the hands of Su Xiaoyun? At this moment, Tian is more and more convinced that whether Su Xiaoyun is the real murderer behind the scenes or not, the death of his parents is absolutely inseparable from him. Even if there is another real murderer,
Su Xiaoyun's ass will not be clean.
However, how cruel is the mind that will make Su Xiaoyun's former close friends hurt hard and murder them? Su Xiaoyun, damn it.
After Yi Tian slowly put down the document, his eyeground was so rich that it almost turned into substance. No matter whether Su Xiaoyun is the real murderer behind the scenes or not, he can't escape the accusation of making trouble for the tiger. If such a person doesn't die, how can there be another person who believes in righteousness? As for what Su Qing thinks after killing Su Xiaoyun, Yi Tian doesn't care at all.
What does an irrelevant person care about? Is it true that when Su Qing begged him, he let Su Xiaoyun go? In that case, when his parents were killed, did he ask Su Xiaoyun, and Su Xiaoyun let them go? However, Yi Tian understands that killing Su Xiaoyun is definitely not a simple matter. Even though he is now a monk on the second floor of the cave, much more powerful than ordinary people on Earth, the security measures of Su Xiaoyun's family are extremely strict. Not only are there 24-hour monitoring, but a fly can be found inside, but their bodyguards have private guns bought in the black market. When he went to the Su family with his father, he once visited Su Xiaoyun's gunroom. At that time, his father also laughed at him for being greedy for life and afraid of death. But now it seems that Su Xiaoyun is guilty of being a thief. Although Yi Tian's strength is strong now, he thinks that he can't compete with guns. He goes there rashly, and there is only one way to die. Revenge is to revenge, but now he is no longer the same as he used to be. Everything has to be considered carefully to ensure that everything is safe. If you can't get revenge, but take yourself in, how can your parents be at ease when they are in Jiuquan? $50,000, 10 gold bars, and a few passports are specially purchased by airlines. They can take any flight to leave the South China Sea at any time. How can these things prepared by Su Xiaoyun seem to be prepared for running? Yi Tianping calms down.
After counting the other things from the safe, he frowns slightly. His suspicions are growing. How can Yi Tian feel that Su Xiaoyun seems to have caused some big trouble?
Father, mother, I will take revenge for you. You are under the 9 springs. Just wait for the moment when I will take revenge for you by cutting the enemy with my hand. After a long time, Yi Tian carefully folded up the names of Yi Honlai and Mu Xiai in the document and put them on the platform. Facing these two names, he counted out heavily and said in a deep voice. When the documents are counted and picked up, the sun has risen high and a new day is coming. Let Su Xiaoyun live a few more days. Yi Tianling snorts, then closes the gate and walks to the dormitory. There's a class this morning, and it's the Ice Devils class. Naturally, we can't escape. And Xiong sent him a text message, saying that he would wait for him at the door of the dormitory and ask some questions that he could not understand in the secret script. Why is she here? Just walked to the dormitory downstairs, Yi Tian's brow twisted into a knot in one's heart. Su Qingzhang was standing at the bottom of the dormitory, holding a black umbrella and wearing a cool white skirt. His slender legs were as beautiful as white lotus root. His slender waist, which was full of wealth, made people think about it. This graceful appearance is as gorgeous as a white lotus gently swaying with the morning wind. I don't know how many boys downstairs are intoxicated when they see her. If Yi Tian in the past, Su Qing takes the initiative to appear in the dormitory downstairs, he will be very excited, and even feel moved, but now, he has no feeling for Su Qing. In addition, Su Xiaoyun is the biggest suspect of murdering his parents. Naturally, he has a little favor for Su Qing and ignores him. Stone, go to class. Yi Tian's eyes glanced over Su Qing and saw Xiong not far away. He waved to him and said with a smile. Yi Tian. Su Qing hears the sound, turns his head in a hurry, and then quickly catches up with Yi Tian. Come on, you two have something to say. I'll wait for you in the classroom. Seeing this, Xiong winked at Yi Tian, then said on purpose, Big Beauty Su has been waiting for you under the dormitory all morning. After that, Xiong ran to the teaching building with a strange smile. Yi Tian. When Su Qing heard Xiong's words, Xiaojia floated 2 little red clouds, and then opened his mouth. Let go. Yi Tian doesn't wait for her to finish speaking, then coldly scolds away. Although the touch of one's small hand is very good, but at the moment, Yi Tian can't enjoy it, he just feels sick.
A touch of bitterness flashed across Su Qing's face. He slowly released his hand, and then said, "Don't you live in the dormitory? It's none of your business where I live. If I have something to say, I have to go to class. I don't have time to grind my teeth." Yi Tian's tone is flat, no joy, no sorrow, no anger. "Thank you for helping me with the last time in Zexiafeng, and thank you for not telling other people about it. I told my father that he asked me to thank you for him, and I'm sorry. The Su family is not an ordinary family. My future husband must be able to be in charge of the Su family. We are wrong in this matter. My father is willing to compensate you for some money." Su Qing said slowly. "I don't have to thank you. Whether you are Su Qing or someone else, I will do that, because that's my heart. As for sorry and compensation, I don't have to. I have hands and feet. I can't die of hunger." Leaf Day sneers a light way. At this time, Su Zhaoyun remembers to be a good man? Then how to be a good man and not let go of the assets that his parents gave to Yifeng in the past? "Yi Tian, why are you so stubborn? Dad, the money he wants to give you is not a small sum of money. It's enough for you to finish college well, and even for you to live a good life in the future." Su Qing did not expect that Yi Tian refused so simply. He was stunned and said, "Do you think I will be short of money now? Without the alms of the Su family, would I be in a bad situation?" Yi Tian looks at Su Qing with an indifferent smile. "You?" Su Qing looks at Yi Tian's back, his lips move, but he can't speak. She saw with her own eyes that Yi Tian sold a mahogany amulet for 300,000 yuan, and the other party was willing to eat it. How could such a person be short of money? How could you possibly accept a gift from your father? "I'm going to class." Yi Tian is too lazy to grind teeth with this boring and ignorant woman again. He turns around and goes to the teaching building. Yi Tian. But at this time, Su Qing suddenly reaches out and grabs Yi Tian's arm. When Yi Tian turns around and looks unhappy, she suddenly smiles bitterly. After taking a deep breath, she looks at Yi Tian's eyes with all her strength and says slowly, "I'm looking for you today. In fact, in addition to these words, there is another very important thing to tell you. I want to tell you I'm engaged." "Is Su Qing engaged?" Hearing this, Yi Tian's eyes changed slightly. He immediately sneered and said, "Congratulations, congratulations, I wish you a happy life." As soon as the words fall, Yi Tian turns around and leaves. But in his heart, there is a strange feeling at the moment. It seems that there is something wrong when he hears that Su Qing is engaged again. But he knew that it was the instinct of his body that was at work now. After all, he did like Su Qing very much in the past. Now when he heard about it, he would inevitably feel unstable. The mana is just a turn, Yi Tian's mood will be restored. All these changes happened in a blink of an eye. Su Qing didn't notice anything. "Don't you want to know who that man is?" Su Qing looks at Yi Tian's appearance, his face is a little pale, and his voice trembles. Although the previous events have made her find that she is a stranger in Yi Tian's heart, she did not expect that Yi Tian would be so indifferent after hearing the news, and even congratulated herself. "Does it have anything to do with me?" Yi Tian smiles indifferently, turns around, and walks towards the teaching building. This time, Su Qing did not stop, just looking at Yi Tian's back, his face is full of bitter smile. She doesn't understand why her first thought after hearing the news from her father is to tell Yi Tian about it. Do you want to see Yi Tian furious or dejected after hearing the news? Or regret? Actually, I don't know who that person is now. After a long time, Su Qing looked at the direction of Yi Tian's departure and murmured, "Why didn't you show up in the past? Is it because you don't want me to see the real you?" Regret. Su Qing is really sorry now. It's a pity that when I look back, I'm a stranger. Yi, what does Beauty Su want from you? Is the broken mirror going to be reunited? At the same time, in the classroom, Shi Xiong, with a smile talks to Yi Tian. She's engaged. Yi Tian light way. Damn it, Shi Xiong didn't expect that Yi Tian should answer like this. After a long time, he took a careful look at Yi Tian's face and said, "Don't be sad, brother.
If you don't have a Su Qing, we have other Qing. I have nothing to do with her. And now I have people I like. Yi Tianping said quietly, and then said to Shi Xiong, don't you have a problem to ask me? Come on, what's the matter? Well, I just want to see Miss Su standing downstairs. I'll let you have a look. You gave me the secret script. I didn't have any difficulty. Sorry. Shi Xiong scratched his head and said awkwardly, then the soul of gossip was burning, and said, you were so hidden, who do you like? Tell me about it, you don't know. I'll take her to see you later. Yi Tian shook his head and said. Shi Xiong takes a suspicious look at Yi Tian. After all, Yi Tian is at school every day. It's impossible for him to know anyone he doesn't know. Even, he suspected that Yi Tian was deliberately relaxing his heart. How can Yi Tian not see Shi Xiong's eyes? He just doesn't say anything. Although he has cut off the past with Su Qing in his heart, I'm afraid that in other people's eyes, this matter will not be so easy to break. However, he never cared about the eyes of others. At least, now he is. Roll call. Just sat down not long, Yan Bing went into the classroom. Sure enough, is still the ice devil demeanor. The first thing is the roll call. Fortunately, Yan Bing's reputation is far away. No one dares to escape from her class. All the members are here. The time of a class passed quickly. However, in class, Yan Bing always sweeps to Yi Tian's side. Yi Tian is nothing. Shi Xiong is scared in a cold sweat. He is afraid that the ice devil will be a demon. Until the end of class, he takes a long breath and follows Yi Tian out of the classroom. Being her junior sister. However, as soon as he walked out of the teacher's door, Yi Tian saw a pretty young man standing at the door, who was quite good-looking and could be called a handsome man, but his skin was slightly pale. When he saw Yan Bing, he said with a warm face. Damn, so intimate, do ice devils still have a boyfriend? Isn't this guy afraid of freezing to death? When Shi Xiong heard this, his eyes showed a strong fire of 8 trigrams, and he whispered to Yi Tian. Mind your own business. Yi Tian shook his head and said with a bitter smile. What he cares about more than someone coming to Yan Bing is the young man's name for Yan Bing. The 3 words little younger martial sister are generally called by people in the school, which is a proof of Yan Bing's suspicion of being a mountain dweller. However, it does not rule out that some school seniors and younger martial sisters have this kind of name. Chu Yun, who asked you to come here? At this time, Yan Bing saw the young man, his face sank and he said coldly. It turns out that he is Chu Yun. Hearing the name, Yi Tian looked at the young man and immediately felt more sympathy. After reading Yan Bing's diary, he made a friction ranking list in his heart. Su Lai can only rank second on this list, and Chu Yun ranks first. What's more, there are some ways to rub him, such as stepping his head into the toilet, rubbing the whole guy on the nail board, hanging the guy on the grill, rubbing his feet, and sprinkling 2 handfuls of cumin powder. Yi Tian was shocked at that time. He was curious about what evil Chu Yun had done, or how ugly he was to make Yan Bing hate him so much. But unexpectedly, he was a handsome man. Of course it's you. Besides our lovely, bright and moving younger martial sister, who else can be so attractive? Chu Yun thinks that he smiles at Yan Bing humorously and flatters Yan Bing. Wow! When the students in the corridor heard this, they immediately made a lot of noise and looked at Yan Bing with smiles. Ice Devil is so cold that it scares people to death. Now it's rare for them to have a chance to see the excitement. Of course, we can't miss it. But Yi Tian, in his heart, mourned for Chu Yun. There is no doubt that in today's diary, he will be rubbed again and develop new patterns of friction. Let's talk in my office. Yan Bing listens to these laughter. The expression of the fundus of the eye is more gloomy, cold, turn round then walk toward the office. Chu Yun doesn't know the inside story at all. Instead, he looks forward to following Yan Bing. A group of students see no excitement to see, this is ready to leave bitterly. Yi Tian, come here. But just when Yi Tian is ready to leave, Yan Bing suddenly turns around and waves to Yi Tian, and even has a rare smile on her face. Brush. In a flash, everyone's eyes quickly focused on Yi Tian, and his eyes were full of suspicion. Chu Yun's words are interesting to Yan Bing. What's Yan Bing doing with Yi Tian, and the Ice Devil is still smiling?
It can't be said that Yi Tian and Ice Devil in an instant. Some students with rich imagination have already made up 10,000 words. At the same time, although Chu Yun's face was smiling, his eyes were full of anger and murder.
Yi Tian frowned, and a very uncomfortable feeling rose in his heart.
He knew that Yan Bing meant to take him as a shield. However, this kind of thing, Yi Tian is really disgusted. After the matter, Chu Yun naturally won't do anything to Yan Bing, but the excrement basin is to stay on Yi Tian's body. Although Yi Tian is not afraid of anything, provoking such unnecessary things will not affect his cultivation. This point, from Chu Yun's eyes now, Yi Tian can see, otherwise, he is in the square-inch spirit field these 200 years, not in vain.
Teacher Yan, I'll come back to you after you've been busy.
Thinking of this, Yi Tian looks at Yan Bing, neither humble nor arrogant. Younger martial sister Binger, since he doesn't want to go, forget it, so as not to disturb us. Chu Yun sneers at Yi Tian and thinks that he is afraid of himself. Then he smiles at Yan Bing.
You didn't listen to the teacher? Yan Bing doesn't pay attention to Chu Yun's words at all. Her brow is wrinkled. She goes forward and grabs Yi Tian's arm.
Then she gets close to Yi Tian's ear and says, "This is what you owe me.
Did you read my diary for nothing?
If you don't go, I'll hang up your subject and let other teachers hang up together."
While the appearance of this scene, in the eyes of other students in the corridor, immediately became more intriguing.
Ice Devil has taught them for so long, who has ever seen Ice Devil and which student have such intimate behavior? All this is really intriguing. At the moment, many students are not in the mind to fill 10,000 words, but nearly 1,000,000 words, and sentimental. As for Yi Tian, he was speechless for a while. The Ice Devil was really hard to deal with. No matter what, he did have some mistakes when he read Yan Bing's diary. After all, it's all a woman's little secret, and he never forgets it. At night and early in the morning, he will think of some of it, a little blood.
Why, don't you have the courage to talk to Binger and me alone?
At this time, after seeing the picture, Chu Yun's eyes became more and more gloomy, and his smile was more brilliant. Only this once, from then on the Qing dynasty. Yi Tian's eyes change, he lowers his voice and says to Yan Bing.
Yan Bing smiles, grabs Yi Tian's arm and takes him to the office.
Chu Yun was biting his teeth and following them, but the more he looked at their backs, the worse his face became.
I go, you say this is how to return a responsibility, son, Ice Devil, how to leaf day so unusual? There must be ghosts in it.
The students in the corridor chirp, one by one full of curiosity, the soul of gossip is burning.
The person ye said before, should not be. Shi Xiong's eyes twinkle and his mind flies.
Yi Tian knows people, he has no reason not to know. Now think, I'm afraid Yi Tian is not willing to say that person's identity, so told a lie.
Leaf, cow.
Think of here, Shi Xiong can't help admiring looking at Yi Tian's back, thumbs up, heartfelt.
At the same time, Yi Tian, Yan Bing and Chu Yun have come to Yan Bing's office. What do people in this school do to eat?
They let Binger junior sister, your office only has such a small space. Elder martial brother will talk to your headmaster later and change his office to you.
Entering the office, Chu Yun looks around and looks at Yan Bingming.
It seems that as long as he speaks, the president of Nanhai University will hand over the office to Yan Bing.
No, I'm fine here.
Yan Bing said coldly, then looked at Chu Yun and said, if you have nothing else to do, you can go.
Yi Tian and I still have things to do. Brush. Chu Yun's face became ugly and swept towards Yi Tian.
His eyes were full of disdain and insidious.
He said faintly, your name is Yi Tian? It's not bad.
It can make younger martial sister Bing Er treat you differently.
I don't know what you do at home.
If I have a chance, I'll call on you. When it comes to the word visit, he deliberately accentuates his tone, and even shows a touch of ridicule in his eyes, as if he saw the picture of Yi Tian's family being restrained, and then he kneels down to beg for mercy. She usually sees so much rubbish, and when she comes across a piece of jade, she naturally looks at it differently.
Yi Tian ignores Chu Yun's threat and is more indifferent than the other party.
After 200 years of cultivation, he had never seen a big scene. Chu Yun's eyes turned around, and he knew what the goods were thinking. You there is seed. When Chu Yun heard the word garbage, his face was as gloomy as ink. He didn't expect that this guy was so bold and belittled himself.
Otherwise, how can you be the man Binger likes?
Yi Tian raises eyebrow, a smile, indifferent way. Since he wants to write off the diary with Yan Bing, he naturally wants to send Chu Yun away as soon as possible. As for Chu Yun's revenge, he doesn't mind at all. If this guy doesn't know his face, he doesn't mind teaching him to know his face. Good. Yi Tian originally planned that Chu Yun could not help but teach him a lesson. Unexpectedly, Chu Yun just looked at Yi Tian, nodded his head sullenly, then looked at Yan Bing, turned around and left the office, and took the door with him heavily.
Annoying spirit, finally get out.
Seeing that smelly face, I want to put on my spiked shoes and rub him on the ground 10,000 times. Yan Bing was relieved to see Chu Yun leave. Then she looked at Yi Tian with a smile and said, "Thank you for helping me solve a big problem. But don't worry, I'll find someone to warn Chu Yun, so that he doesn't dare to trouble you.
Just this once, we're clean." Yi Tian nodded at will and said to Yan Bing that he was ready to leave.
He doesn't care whether Chu Yun will retaliate, but Yan Bing's attitude of taking responsibility makes him less speechless.
You said that, but I didn't promise you. And pretending to be my boyfriend won't make you look good among your classmates? Think about it.
In their eyes, you are a big man who conquers the ice devil in this way. I think you have to thank me and invite me to a meal to express yourself.
Yan Bing flashed to block in the door, eyes blinked, looking at Yi Tian laughing. Too much is not enough. Yi Tian felt speechless and indifferent.
Then he looked at Yan Bing and said 3 words with a smile, "People on the mountain?" Just the moment Chu Yun left, he felt a kind of killing opportunity from Chu Yun.
This killing machine is very similar to the strong man of Eagle Clawgate.
This kind of chi is by no means what ordinary people can have. The only possibility is that Chu Yun is a mountain man. In this way, Yan Bing's identity is also ready.
Yan Bing is stunned and looks at Yi Tian in amazement.
His eyes are changing rapidly.
It seems that he didn't expect Yi Tian to say these 3 words. What do you know? The next second, Yan Bing looks at Yi Tian solemnly and says, "I'll just casually say that there are a lot of things in your diary that I really want to go back to the mountains. Do the mountain people have other meanings?"
With a smile, Yi Tian stretched out his hand to open the office and walked out. This time, Yan Bing didn't stop him.
He just looked at Yi Tian's back with a twinkling look. At this moment, she is not sure whether Yi Tian's words are true or false.
I finally found an interesting guy. As soon as the annoying spirit goes away, my aunt's world is clean. This smelly boy really has 2 brushes to use as a shield.
I have to find him next time.
After a long time, Yan Bing showed a sly smile at the corner of her mouth. After stretching a lot, she went back to her desk and put her legs on the desk. She took out her mobile phone and pressed several numbers. When she got through, she lengthened her voice and said, "Master, why did Chu Yun come to find someone else? Did you tell him where I was? In this way, I will never visit you again."
Well, that's about the same. By the way, I asked a student to help me get rid of Chu Yunchi.
Go and tell him not to let him do anything to my students.
Otherwise, we will not have to do anything. Who is the master and who is the apprentice? Of course, you are the best and most considerate master in the world. This picture, where there is a little bit of Ice Devil style. If there are students of Chinese department, I'm afraid not all eyes will be shocked.
At the same time, when Yi Tian came out of the office, he saw Su Lai standing by the aisle.
As soon as he saw Yi Tian, he immediately asked warily, "Who is the man who just went to Mr. Yan's office? What's the relationship with Mr. Yan?" Ha ha. Yi Tian looks at Su Lai with an indifferent smile and goes down the stairs. The trough. If I don't deal with you, you stinking student don't know who you are, do you? Su Lai looks at Yi Tian's arrogant appearance. He is so angry that he stomps his feet in the corridor. Yi Tian, right? When Yi Tian goes downstairs, Chu Yun is standing in the lobby on the first floor. When he sees Yi Tian, he comes quickly, looks at him coldly, and says, "I advise you to leave Binger right away. Her identity is not something you can afford. You'd better be obedient, otherwise, ha ha ha." Although Chu Yun's words are not finished, the meaning of threat is self-evident. If I can't, can you? In the future, don't just focus on picking other people's faults, but look for problems from yourself first. Yi Tian looked at Chu Yun, sneered, and then said, as for what you said, otherwise, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I really don't care at all. It's estimated that someone will come and put on the t-shirt. You don't need to return it. Just throw it away. But this frightening picture, Yi Tian just swept by. After leaving the t-shirt, light sentence, turn to leave, go to the dormitory to find Shishong, borrow a suit of clothes to change. Don't you ask me why I did it? Su Qing saw Yi Tian's action, holding his t-shirt in his hands and blocking his chest. His face turned red and he said, if you don't care for your own life, what can I do? Just next time, you may not have the good luck to meet me again. Leaf Day turns headlight A, then want to leave. Although he was really curious about why Su Chan wanted to jump into the lake, he was just curious, not to the point that he had to know the whole story. After all, from the point that Su Zhaoyun is now the biggest suspect in killing his parents, Yi Tianning's rescue of Su Qing has been regarded as a kind-hearted man. However, even if he knew that the person who fell into the water was Su Qing, Yi Tian would still jump into the lake to save people. When Su Zhaoyun murdered his parents, Su Qing fell into the water, 1 yard to 1 yard. Yi Tian can tell this clearly. He will not put his hatred on Su Qing, and he will not retaliate against Su Zhaoyun. Injustice has its head, debt has its owner. Yi Tian, can you send me home? Please, I don't want people to see me like this. At this time, Su Qing suddenly looked at Yi Tian's back and said with a tremble, take it as if you are pitying a little cat and a little dog. Take pity on me. Words export, Su Qing's face is hot as charcoal. She never thought that one day, she would be so humble in front of Yi Tian. But now, she felt that she had no one to trust except Yi Tian. When Yi Tian heard the sound, his steps stopped. However, he stopped not because of Su Qing's humble attitude, but because of Su Qing's words. The Su family is heavily guarded. It's hard to get in and find out. In particular, after Su Zhaoyun murdered his parents, he will certainly strengthen security measures, but unfortunately, he is now an unpopular figure in the Su family and is definitely unable to go in to investigate the situation. If you can take the opportunity to send Su Qing home, go to the Su family to have a look, it will be good for him to sneak into the Su family in the future. It's not a matter of taking advantage of Su Qing. It's better to save her interest. Yes. Yi Tian was a little silent and nodded. When Su Qing heard the news, he shivered and put the t-shirt on his body. Then he quickly walked to the back of Yi Tian, lowered his head and almost put his head on his back. This girl really wants face. How can such people commit suicide by jumping into the lake? Yi Tian was speechless for a while, but he was too lazy to talk and ask so many questions. With his bare arms, he took Su Qing to the school gate. Along the way, although there were many onlookers, Su Qing wore Yi Tian's t-shirt and lowered her head, but no one found it was her. After taking a taxi at the school gate, Yi Tian took Su Qing to the Su family. Thank you. After getting on the bus, Su Qing was relieved, and then grateful to Yi Tian. Yi Tian nodded indifferently, counted as a response, and then closed his eyes and leaned on the chair to adjust his mind. He was very worried that after he saw Su Zhaoyun, he could not help but beat him to death. In fact, I didn't commit suicide by jumping into the lake. I was just a little upset. I walked around the lake and accidentally fell down. I don't know why. The more I struggled, the more I went to the center of the lake. Su Qing has been used to Yi Tian's attitude and explains to himself. There is a spring undercurrent in the artificial lake. People who can't be watery will naturally be pushed by the undercurrent. Yi Tian didn't speak, but he understood the reason. Dad would appreciate it if he knew you saved me. Yi Tian, you can talk to him again. Maybe he will help you find the culprit who murdered your parents. Su Qing carefully looked at Yi Tian's face and said, brush. Hearing this, Yi Tian's face was immediately covered with a layer of frost, but in a moment it was back as usual. Let Su Zhaoyun to help, isn't that a thief shouts to catch a thief, and there will be no truth in monkey ears and horses. Su Qing looks at Yi Tian's silent appearance, sighs and doesn't speak anymore. Soon, the car arrived at Fengqi Mountain. The location of the Su family is a single-family villa built on Fengqi Mountain. People who can live here are rich or expensive. As soon as the car arrived at the intersection of Fengqishan, it was stopped. After Su Qing's face recognition, it was released. When the taxi turned into the road to Su's villa, it was stopped by 3 tough security guards. They confirmed that the person in the taxi was Su Qing. They asked her a few words, opened the trunk and looked at it. Then they let it go. "Little girl, you have such a big shelf that you are going to catch up with the head of state." Taxi drivers are shocked by this set of tricks, and rush to Su Qing to praise. Tian did not say a word, but according to the route, thinking about how to safely climb the mountain without being found. When the car drove to the villa door, another 7 or 8 bodyguards came. After Su Qing and Tianxia drove, they felt Tian's body warily and took a metal detector to measure it. Then they let it go. Tian's steps are deliberately slow. He looks at the structure of the villa as he walks. Su's villa is regulated by Chinese-style quadrangle, but in the past, he didn't notice that there are high-voltage wires above the courtyard wall. Once someone goes over the wall, he will be turned over by electricity. On both sides of the courtyard wall, 2 5-meter-high poles are erected, on which several cameras with infrared night vision function and 360-degree rotation are hung. It's not like living in a villa, it's like a heavily guarded military area. This place, if you want to come in, it really takes a little effort. Tian's face is expressionless, but he thinks about the solution in his heart. "Qingqing, what's the matter with you?" After entering the courtyard, Su Zhaoyun, who is nearly 40 years old, white-faced and slightly fat, walks out of the house under the guidance of several bodyguards and looks at Su Qing. These bodyguards, with bulging waists, should be wearing private guns. Another one is carrying a black suitcase, which is supposed to be the kind of bulletproof equipment that can be unfolded by shaking. However, to Tian's surprise, behind Su Zhaoyun, there is also a 20-year-old girl with sword eyebrows and stars, who feels a little rich and handsome. This person's appearance, the face is very raw. Tian came to the Su family so many times in the past, has never seen. "I accidentally fell into the water. It was Tian who saved me. I asked him to send me back." When Su Qing saw Su Zhaoyun, his eyes immediately turned red. He threw himself into Su Zhaoyun's arms and sobbed. "Good boy, don't cry. Go and change your clothes." Su Zhaoyun patted Su Qing's head pitifully, said softly, then looked at Tian and said, "Xiaotian, thank you for saving Qingqing." Although it's thanks, Tian can still feel that Su Zhaoyun's tone has a kind of indifference and alienation. "You're welcome. My father always taught me to be kind when I was alive. If I can help others, I can help them." Tian Ping said quietly. "Good boy, he has the same character as Hong Lai." Su Zhaoyun nodded perfunctorily, then winked at a middle-aged man beside him and said, "Li Fu, take Tian to the mall to buy some clothes and the best. After buying clothes, take Tian to eat some delicious tonic. Be sure to help me thank Tian." Although the words are to thank Tian, it is obvious that they are giving Tianxia the order to chase visitors. Li Fu nodded and was ready to take Tian away. "Dad, Tian saved me. Can't you let him come into the house? Can't you change your clothes for him? Do you have to let him go so far to buy new ones?" But just then, Su Qing reached out and grabbed Su Zhaoyun's arm, frowning. She didn't expect that Su Zhaoyun didn't even want to let Tian in. "Be obedient, Dad, there are distinguished guests here. Next time, let Tian come to sit at home." Su Zhaoyun gave a dry smile and looked at the young man behind him. Then he winked at Su Qing and lowered his voice. "It's because of the young man. Tian's ear power is good." Although Su Zhaoyun's voice is small, he can still hear it clearly. When he first came in, he found that when Su Zhaoyun found out that he was coming back with Su Qing, he looked at the young man in a daze, and his attention was always on the young man during the conversation. All this, as if Su Zhaoyun is very concerned about the young man's impression. The people who saved Su Qing are also distinguished guests. How can they not come in and sit down? At this time, the young man, whom Su Zhaoyun called a distinguished guest, looked at Tian and said with a smile, "Listen to Master Yan.
On hearing this, Su Zhaoyun nodded in a hurry, and then said to Yi Tian, come into the room and change your clothes.
Yi Tian, come in quickly.
When Su Qing heard this, he showed a smile and waved to Yi Tian. Yi Tian nods and follows Su Qing to the villa. He really wanted to see if there was any big change in the security of the villa.
Young Master Yan, please.
Seeing this, Su Zhaoyun hurriedly and respectfully said to young Master Yan. Without saying a word, young Master Yan walked towards the villa, only his eyes fell on Su Qing's back and flashed a touch of blazing heat. When he saw Yi Tian, it was a touch of coldness.
I'll change my clothes first, and then I'll get you Dad's clothes.
After entering the room, Su Qing smiles at Yi Tian, and then runs to his room.
Yi Tian non-committal, eyes in the villa constantly scan.
The gate is made of alloy and equipped with fingerprint and iris recognition system, and the windows are reinforced so that they can't get in unless they shrink into inches. And in the corner above the living room, there is also an extremely hidden surveillance camera, let alone someone rushing in. Even if it is a fly flying in here, it will be found by the people in the surveillance room.
Su Zhaoyun's villa is just like a tortoise shell. Yi Tian sighed. Uncle Su, give me 1,000,000 yuan to Yi Tian.
But at this time, young Master Yan suddenly looked at Su Zhaoyun and said. Su Zhaoyun was stunned when he heard that Yan's brow was wrinkled. He quickly turned to Li Fu and said, Li Fu, help me get $1,000,000 in cash from the bank and give it to Yi Tian.
Why don't you go with Li Fu to get the money? 1 million is enough. Master Yan waves his hand, interrupts Su Zhaoyun's words, and then says coldly to Yi Tian.
In the words, there is a sense of almsgiving from the superior.
The leaf day hears a sound, eyebrow disdain of pick to pick. Be contented. 1 million is already a lot. Don't be too proud of Sichuan. If you want to save your life, let's just look at the story. Don't daydream like this. Seeing Yi Tian's expression, young Master Yan continued to sneer. Yi Tian, I know you are short of money now. Go with Li Fu and get 1 million yuan. Save some money. It will last you a long time.
Su Zhaoyun is aware that young Master Yan is displeased and starts to urge Yi Tian to leave in a hurry. No, my parents left me a lot of money before they died, enough to eat, drink and have fun all my life. I didn't plan to come here, but Su Qing asked me to send her back, so I would accompany her on this trip.
Goodbye.
Yi Tian calmly smiles and turns to walk outside the door. Just now, he has seen the security measures inside and outside the villa. He is very worried. If he continues to stay, he can't help beating Su Zhaoyun to death. However, after leaving, he gave Su Zhaoyun a trick. Su Zhaoyun, he just said that before his parents died, he left him a lot of money.
What does that mean?
At the moment when Yi Tian turns around and walks out of the door, young Master Yan suddenly turns his head and looks at Su Zhaoyun coldly.
I don't know, I really don't know. Su Zhaoyun looked at young Master Yan in amazement and shook his head repeatedly.
He also doesn't understand, how can Yi Tian still have money in his hand?
But if Yi Naivete is short of money, how can he refuse $1 million? Don't you feel compassion for your son-in-law-to-be, the son of your old friend and brother, and leave him some property secretly? Young Master Yan sneered at Su Zhaoyun and said coldly.
Young Master Yan, I swear to heaven, I really don't know what's going on. But please rest assured that I will thoroughly investigate this matter and give you an explanation. As for the former son-in-law, that's even more ridiculous. I've broken Qingqing's engagement with him, and they have nothing to do with each other.
What's more, I said.
When Su Zhaoyun heard the words of young Master Yan, he was sweating. He knelt down in front of young Master Yan and kowtowed like a chicken pecking rice. The theft of the office safe has upset him. He didn't know whether the man who took the things out of the safe was a thief or someone. But according to what the security guard said, the one who can do this step is by no means a petty thief. As soon as the safe was stolen, young Master Yan came, which made him extremely worried about whether his things fell into the hands of young Master Yan. If those things fall into each other's hands, all his back roads will be broken.
Look at your hopeless appearance, I'm just saying it casually.
Yan child pick eyebrow a smile, then light way, clear quickly downstairs, get up, let her see these not good. Su Zhaoyun wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and got up slowly with a long sigh of relief. Dong dong, sure enough, a moment later, Su Qing ran out of the room.
When he saw that Yi Tian was not in the living room, he was surprised and said, "Where is Yi Tian?"
Uncle Su said he saved you and was willing to give him $1 million.
He went out to get the money.
I said, how can I buy clothes for him? He is not willing to buy clothes for him. It turns out that he is running for money.
Young Master Yan didn't even blink his eyes.
He told a lie with a smile.
For money?
Su Qing lost his mind for a while, but after a moment, he shook his head and said, "You're lying to me." Yi Tian sells a mahogany amulet for 300,000 yuan, and he refuses others' plan to buy all amulets.
How can he see $1 million yuan? Uncle Su, what do you think?
Young Master Yan looks at Su Qing's appearance, and his eyes are cold. He looks at Su Zhaoyun quietly.
Young Master Yan didn't lie. Yi Tian really went to get money.
Su Zhaoyun helped him prove the lie in a hurry.
It's true.
Su Qing Nane, I ground is full of can't hide disappointment and loss, in the ham that Leaf Day's black t-shirt, by her forceful pinch into a ball. He's very poor now, so he needs money very much. Su Zhaoyun peeked at young Master Yan, and then said to Su Qing in a hurry, "Xingxing, let me introduce you.
This is my father's guest. In Xiaoyan Jiuxiao."
Hearing this, Mr. Yan interrupted Su Zhaoyun's words and held out his hand to Su Qing with a smile.
He said with a smile, in other words, "I'm your fiancé."
Su Qing, who was losing his mind, suddenly changed his face and looked at Su Zhaoyun in disbelief.
Yes, Xingxing, young Master Yan is the man whose father made the engagement for you. Young Master Yan is very talented and has a very good family background. It's a blessing for us to get married. Su Zhaoyun nodded in a hurry.
In his words, flattery was like a tide.
Xingxing, I will take care of you and the Su family.
Yan Zhouxiao chuckled twice and continued to stretch out his hand.
Why should I marry him if he is so good? Marry him yourself. I now, who do not want to marry, who do not like. Su Qing turns a blind eye to Yan Zhouxiao's movements. Tears break the line and draw 2 lines of water on his cheek.
He roars at Su Zhaoyun and runs to the door.
Xingxing.
Su Zhaoyun wants to stop, but Su Qing has run out of the villa in an instant.
Su Zhaoyun, that's all you said. Don't worry. I think she still has that Yi Tian in her heart.
Yan Zhouxiao looks at Su Qing's back and slowly takes back his hand.
His face is so gloomy that he almost drops into the water. In his opinion, he can see Su Qing, it is Su Qing's honor, but this woman dared to be so disrespectful. Pop. Pop. Pop.
Hearing this, Su Zhaoyun's face immediately changed. He fell on his knees and slapped Yan Zhouxiao in the face. He said, "Don't worry, young Master Yan.
Xingxing is just spoiled by me.
She has no idea about Yi Tian now. I'll try to persuade her to come down."
You'd better pray like this, otherwise, Su family, haha.
Yan Zhouxiao gave Su Zhaoyun a cold smile, which made his forehead sweat. After his back was soaked with sweat, he raised his 5 fingers, squeezed his fist gently, and said, "In fact, even if she likes that boy, it doesn't matter.
As long as he becomes a dead man, can she still like a dead man?" Yes, it's. Su Zhaoyun trembled like chaff, but his mouth echoed.
He is very clear, if he dare to say no, then waiting for Yi Tian's end, I'm afraid that is what he will encounter next.
Get up. Money, you have to investigate. If this kid really has a lot of money in his hand, even I can't keep you.
Yan Zhouxiao smiles indifferently, then looks at Su Zhaoyun coldly. Su Zhaoyun nodded in a hurry, then got up and stood next to Su Zhaoyun.
What are you doing here? Is it wood? Don't check it out yet. Yan Zhouxiao looks at Su Zhaoyun discontentedly and scolds coldly. Yes.
Hearing this, Su Zhaoyun hurriedly walked out of the villa.
Haha, if the master didn't find out that your daughter is a good cauldron, do you think you are worthy to be my father-in-law?
Yan Zhouxiao takes a look at the direction of Su Zhaoyun's departure. Then he swaggers back to the sofa and sits down with his eyes slightly narrowed.
He doesn't know what he is thinking.
At the same time, Yi Tian got into a taxi, but because the class time had been delayed, he didn't go back to school. Instead, he went to rent a house.
That young Master Yan is from the mountain. Yi Tian looks at the scenery outside the car, but his eyes are flickering. Just when he was in the Su family, he noticed the unique flavor of the mountain people in Yin Zhouxiao. Moreover, the breath of Yin Zhouxiao is stronger than that of the strong man in Chu Yun in Yingsheimen. Is the death of my parents related to the mountain people?
Yi Tian's face changed and he felt that everything became more and more complicated. But the truth is still unknown to him at the moment, but what he can be sure is that no matter who is involved in this matter, he will pursue it to the end.
God block kill God, Buddha block kill Buddha.
As long as he can comfort his parents, even if there is a bloody storm, he will not hesitate. An hour later, the taxi stopped at the door of the rental house.
Why is the door open? When I went out, it was locked.
Yi Tian sweeps his eyes toward the gate, frowns, settles accounts with the driver, gets off, pushes the door and goes in. It's you push open the door, leaf day toward the hospital a sweep, the corner of the mouth can't help but hook up a touch of radian.
At the moment, there are two people in the yard.
One of them is the strong man of Eagle Clawgate who had been abandoned by him before. The other is a 60 to 70-year-old man. He is not tall and thin, but his temple is high, and his eyes are fierce. When he glances at people, it makes people feel that he is being watched by Falcon. Master, what Qin Xianming stole from the door is now in the hands of this boy. The strong man takes a cold look at Yi Tian, and then says respectfully to the lean old man. Take it out, and I'll leave you a whole body. The thin old man looked at Yi Tian casually and said faintly. That attitude can be said to be arrogant to the extreme, as if in his eyes, Yi Tian is a dead man.
If you abandon your cultivation and get out now, I can consider letting you go.
Yi Tian looks at the thin old man, without any threat, coldly. Boy, how dare you! As soon as the lean old man patted the chair, his body immediately catapulted like a sharp arrow. Then he aimed his claw at Yi Tian's head and grabbed it heavily. That grasp, vigorous and powerful, as if it was really a hawk falcon to kill its prey. Yi Tian sneers and punches with his backhand, then he goes to block the lean old man's claws.
Bang!
Fist-claw contact, immediately a dull sound sounded, immediately thin old man's body was shocked back 2 steps. In front of my claw, you still have the power to resist.
I'm really impressed. No wonder this waste can be discarded by you. After standing firm, the lean old man looked at Yi Tian with more vigilance and examination in his eyes. That's a lot of crap. Yi Tian is too lazy to spend much time.
He jumps up and smashes his fist at the lean old man. When the lean old man saw Yi Tian's move, his eyes were cold. He waved his 2 claws. One claw blocked him, and the other claw pulled out toward Yi Tian's chest.
Don!
To his surprise, Yi Tian's fist was so powerful that he swung his paw to one side, and then his fist fell heavily on his chest. With a dull sound, he flew back and stood still. Who are you? There is a mysterious level of cultivation in a flash. The thin old man paid equal attention to the killing of the ground in the color of surprise, staring at Yi Tian and said in a deep voice. He was the cultivation in the early stage of Xian level. According to his idea, no matter how strong Yi Tian's strength is, it's only the later stage of Huang level at most. After a few rounds, he can be subdued by himself, but now Yi Tian's strength is equal to his. At such an age, he had such a strong cultivation, which made him scared.
Better than you.
Yi Tian smiles indifferently, and his mana surges all over his body. He plunges to kill the lean old man. The thin old man had a dignified look and kept blocking, but every time he resisted, he cried bitterly.
Yi Tian's strength is so strong that it's astonishing. It's like a raging fire. With a few efforts, he feels that his arms have become numb and sour.
Moreover, before the end of one bombardment, another bombardment came again, and the landing point was almost the same. Rao Jingshou's eagle claw skill is well known among people on the mountain, and there are many dead souls under his hand. But now, he feels that he has no fighting power at all. If you want to destroy me, let me destroy you first. At this time, Yi Tian cold drink, raised a fist, hit the thin old man's chest. Poof! In a boxing, the thin old man immediately turned from a falcon into a kite, flying upside down, falling heavily on the steps, his chest undulating and spitting out 5 mouthfuls of blood. And there were many pink fragments in the blood, obviously the viscera had been broken.
Bang! The next second, Tian has come to the lean old man, toes raised, the focus on the lean old man's dantian. In a flash, the thin old man's face immediately suffered to the extreme, and looking at Tian's eyes was more like looking at the devil. There was anger, but more was fear. He felt that his chi was rapidly dissipating. Tian, waste his cultivation. He was so strong. Looking at the appearance that master's cultivation was abandoned, the strong man could not help swallowing his saliva, and his body was shaking wildly. He thought that master would destroy Tian. But what happened now shows that he really thinks too much. In his eyes, the cruel master, in Tian's eyes, is not much better than him. What eagle claws are all weak chickens? Master, spare your life.
It's the old man who forced me to bring him to your trouble.
It has nothing to do with me. Without any hesitation, the strong man immediately knelt on the ground and looked at Tian with a flattering face, begging repeatedly. That's no different from a pug. Since you are his master, what kind of things do you have with you for cultivation? Tian didn't say a word to the strong man's plea, but looked at the thin old man with sharp eyes and a smile. All my things are there, master. Please forgive me, the thin old man's cultivation was abandoned. Although he hated Tian, he knew that it was no more difficult for Tian to kill him than a chicken. He could only point to a small bag beside him and tremble. When Tian heard this, he shook his hand with a small bag and poured out a few small porcelain vases, a simple book, some herbal medicines and a black stone. Then he nodded with satisfaction. After that, he let go of his mind and swept over the thin old man. After confirming that he had nothing else on him, he said coldly, "Remember to ask more people to trouble me in the future. The higher the seniority, the higher the cultivation, the better." Did he deliberately let me go in order that I could bring people to revenge so that he could get benefits from others? As soon as the strong man hears Tian's words, he is immediately dumbfounded. Suddenly, there is a flash in his head, and he understands Tian's intention. It's just that other people are killing and looting. And Tian is with the help of others to find his trouble to seize the treasure. The master of art is bold. The strong man and the skinny old man have a bitter smile on their face, and their intestines are almost green with regret. What do you call this pill? At this time, Tian opened one of the porcelain vases and sniffed it. With Dante's experience, he decided that it was non-toxic. Then he poured out a hydrology pill, frowned and said slowly. According to his attainments of Dan Dao, it can be judged from the smell alone. This pill is exactly the same as the Peiyuan pill he had taken before. It was made from Tian Cinco. However, this pill is only 20% powerful and has too many toxic impurities, so it is black all over. This is Xianling pill. It's an essential pill for Huang to break through Xianling. The strong man took a greedy look at the pills in Tian's hand, and immediately looked dark. In the past, his greatest wish was to get a Xianling pill one day, and then break through the Xianling level. But now the elixir field is abandoned. Even if there is a Xianling pill, there is no hope of breaking through the Xianling level in this life. This pill is very precious? Who made it? Tian aimed his eyes at the strong man's face and said faintly. Don't play tricks on us, elder. With your accomplishments, don't you know that only Qingming sect can make pills? Xianling pill is really nothing to you, but for those of us who have low accomplishments, it takes more than 10 years or even more to save for a pill. Thin old man heard this, a wry smile, only think Tian is in take him to make fun of. Only the strong man looked strange. He had contact with Tian. He knew that this powerful elder really didn't know much about the things on the mountain. Otherwise, he would not have asked him what the sect on the mountain had last time, and he would not even recognize the mysterious elixir this time. However, if this elder doesn't know anything, what's the matter with his cultivation? Is it a gale? Peiyuan pill, which is less than 20% of its medicinal power, actually needs their savings for more than 10 years or even longer. Tian listens to this, in the heart repeatedly how tongue. According to this method of calculation, the Peiyuan pill made by ourselves should not be exchanged for decades of savings by these mountain people?
However, among the sect on the mountain, only Qingming's sect could refine pills, which made Yi Tian really unexpected. You know, at the beginning, in the square-inch spiritual realm, the Dandao of Qingming blessed land was also unique.
They are so similar that Yi Tian really doubts the connection between them.
If you have a chance in the future, you must visit Qingmingzong.
Yi Tian's eyes twinkle.
He opens the other two porcelain bottles and checks them. In one of the bottles, the elixir, according to the lean old man, is a Huangling pill, which is used by ordinary people to cut bones and wash marrow.
As for another bottle, it's not pills, it's acid. As long as a drop falls on the human body, if you don't cut off the skin and meat contaminated with citric acid in time, it will spread quickly, and in a short period of time, it will be burned into a mass of black ash. The purpose of this thing is to brighten Yi Tian's eyes. With this device, he can save a lot of trouble when dealing with some troubles in the future. As for the ancient book, it is the secret book of Yingzhagong. Although the skinny old man and the strong man attach great importance to it, Yi Tian just turns 2 pages, but he is not interested in it, so he throws it aside. Compared with his idea of Sui Wanduan, it's a big difference between heaven and earth. If you can't swallow this breath, you should continue to call your forefathers of Eagle Clawgate. Remember, you must warn them that I'm very difficult to deal with. Let them bring as many babies as possible before they come. This harvest, in addition to the bottle of acid, the other two, Yi Tian can be described as very dissatisfied. After waving at will, let the thin old man and the strong man go away. The master and the apprentice left the yard with dark faces and low heads. If you hadn't encouraged me, how could I have suffered such a big loss today? Especially the skinny old man, is like cannibalism, staring at the strong man, gnashing his teeth. I've been practicing hard for half of my life. After a long time, I've got Xuanji's accomplishments. Now it's better, and it's directly wasted. How can he swallow this breath? How can he not hate his apprentice? As for hating Yi Tian, he didn't have the courage to kill himself. Old man, we are all ordinary people like ants. What are you doing with me? It's not your garbage. If it's not because of your level, I will not be defeated by him. Over the years, you've been yelling at me and asking me to take advantage of you for whatever benefits you get. I've been looking down on you for a long time. Unfortunately, this time is different from the past. At ordinary times, the strong man is scared to death when he hears the words of the lean old man. But now they are both ordinary people. The strong man's anger rises and hits the lean old man heavily in the head with one blow, bang. Although he was disabled, he was still a middle-aged man, and the thin old man was a real frail man with weak chi and blood. After this fight, the thin old man smashed his head on the wall, his face was black and his head was full of blood. Old man, just like you are now, you dare to be arrogant with me. I have to beat you up today. When the strong man got a good punch, new and old grudges immediately poured into his heart. With one punch and one foot, he hailed the lean old man. After beating him half dead, he spat heavily on him and then went away. Yi Tian doesn't know what happened outside the yard. Of course, even if he knew, he was not interested in the picture of the dog biting the dog. The medicine's power is too bad. It can't help me improve too much strength. After swallowing the Peiyuan pill, which was called Shenling pill by the thin old man and regarded as 20% of the medicinal power, Yi Tian turned to Sui Wangguan's idea, digested the medicinal power in a flash, and then shook his head. The effect of Peiyuan pill refined by Qingming's sect is too bad, and it is very common for him to improve his cultivation strength. As for Huang Lingdan with worse quality, Yi Tian didn't try it at all. Instead, he planned to give it to Shi Xiong when he went to school tomorrow, so that he could swallow it, cut bones and wash marrow, so as to facilitate later cultivation. Ding-ling-ling. Almost at the same time, Yi Tian's mobile phone rings, which shows Shi Xiong's number. It's Chow Chow, Chow Chow. Yi Tian smiles bitterly and shakes his head. Before he gets through the phone, there comes Shi Xiong's nervous voice. Yi, what are you doing? Last English teacher suddenly called the roll, you are not in the classroom, was recorded absenteeism. Moreover, the English teacher also said that there is no difference between 1 time of absenteeism and 10 times of absenteeism,
which directly cancels your classroom performance.
Cancel class performance?
Leaf Day hears a sound, eyebrow immediately twisted into a knot in one's heart. The results of each course in the university are not all paper scores, but classroom performance scores and paper scores. If the classroom performance scores are cancelled, it is basically equal to the iron hang-up of this subject.
Yi, the English teacher is not so strict. Have you offended him?
And at this time, Xiong asked in doubt.
Offend the English teacher? Tian shakes his head.
He has nothing to do with his English teacher.
It's Su Lai's scum. But before opening his mouth, Tian's mind suddenly flashed over Su Lai's sinister face, and he could not help biting his teeth.
This is no coincidence. It must be Su Lai who played a trick in the dark and let the English teacher take extra care of himself.
Yes, it must be Su Lai. The goods have been pursuing the Ice Devil. Now the Ice Devil is with you. He must be envious and jealous.
He deliberately wants to find you trouble.
Grass, this Su Lai is not a damn thing.
He has no ability to catch up with the Ice Devil, and he can't see other people's good. Xiong immediately nods his head and says yes when he hears Yi Tian's words.
After he scolds him angrily, he worries about Yi Tian and says, Yi, what are you going to do?
Su Liehao is a teacher. He asked his English teacher to help you hang up your subject, so you have to do it again.
It's very troublesome.
Don't worry, I'll handle it myself.
Su Lai thinks it's hard for me. He's looking for the wrong person.
Yi Tian smiles coldly, then his eyes suddenly change and his expression is strange.
By the way, what do you mean when you just said Ice Devil is with me? Haha, Yi, I know who we brothers are. Don't worry.
I'll keep it a secret for you. But tell Ice Devil to give me an excellent grade in class. I'm so cowardly that I call her sister-in-law is not. On hearing this, Xiong immediately laughed and hung up.
Even through the phone, Yi Tian seems to see him winking, the soul of gossip burning.
I understand sister-in-law. Yi Tian listens to the beep on the other side of the phone and smiles bitterly. Now he found that he was really on the ship of Yanbing. I'm afraid Xiong is definitely not the only one with similar ideas.
This misunderstanding, big. I've suffered a big loss.
I'm afraid I'll never stop living in school in the future. Yi Tian shook his head with a bitter smile, but soon put the thought behind him, and then his mouth went up.
He thought a little more and said coldly, Su Lai, you really don't know how to fight with me.
Although Yi Tian now doesn't care about his grades, even if he is expelled from school, it doesn't matter to him. But he was never the kind of master who was good at being bullied, especially after 200 years of cultivation. Since Su Lai dares to count on him, if he doesn't give his grandson some hardship, doesn't he mean to make people feel weak and deceiving? However, these things need to be dealt with at school. Yi Tian didn't think so much, but went back to the house, found out the pen and paper, with just memory, the Su Villa security situation, all painted on the paper. There are some things that we have to have a good chat with Su Zhaoyan face to face, gongs and drums, so that we can know the truth. Although today's opportunity is good, it will inevitably cause unnecessary trouble in public. Just when Yi Tian draws a picture of the security situation and finds out a safe route, there is a knock on the door.
Why did someone come again?
Yi Tian frowned, went to the yard. Shen swept across the door, the corner of his mouth showed a smile, and then stretched out his hand to open the door, to see the little black girl who was eating melon seeds, said with a smile, What can I do for you?
Don't you mean to invite me and my mother to dinner? How is it today?
Little black wench is not polite to Yi Tian at all. She is eating melon seeds, and her eyes are turning around.
Cicada at this time, standing behind the little black girl, a simple and elegant middle-aged woman with the same complexion, neutral posture, patted the little black girl on the head, then looked at Yi Tianwen and said with a smile, Excuse me, Mr. Cicada, this little girl is spoiled by me, no big or small. We're not here to invite you to dinner, but Cicada always mentions you, so I'll come and have a look. Cicada. Yi Tian's eyes twinkled slightly. Isn't the name cicada another way of saying green cicada?
Not only that, from the simple and elegant middle-aged woman, he felt the more intense green charm than the cicada.
In other words, the simple and elegant middle-aged woman is the real charm. To be a man, you have to keep your word. I promised Cicada to invite her to dinner. Naturally, you have to keep your word. It's better to hit the sun than choose the day. Since we meet today, let's go to dinner now. Tian takes off a smile and says to the plain and elegant woman, "There's something delicious, happy." On hearing this, the cicada's eyes were shining, bouncing and shouting, but even so, the melon seeds in his hand still didn't forget to put them in his mouth, which showed that he was really a snack. "I'll disturb you, sir." Plain elegant woman is also a neat person, eyes changed, smile. "Don't disturb me. When I first moved here, I didn't eat the patty you sent me." Tian smiles and turns to lock the door. He really didn't mind inviting two of them to dinner. Moreover, at this point, it's time for him to eat. When she heard that Tian had eaten the meat cake she had brought, she was puzzled. After a moment, she glared at the cicada. It was obvious that the little girl was making her own decision. The cicada is not afraid of her, just spit out his tongue, still heartless knock melon seeds. "I don't know what you call it?" At this time, after Tian closed the door, he looked at the plain elegant woman and asked with a smile. "My name is Chen Cheng." The simple and elegant woman answers with a smile. Sure enough, Tian nods with a smile, but the waves in his heart turn slightly. The word green is not green. Obviously, she knows her identity very well. However, since there are mountain people on the earth, how can these two ghosts mix up in the marketplace without being discovered? There is also the complex breath of the cicada girl, which is even more strange. But Tian also knows that Jiaqin can't speak deeply. If he asks rashly, it's strange that he doesn't scare away Zhuqing. One of the main characteristics of the charm of green oyster is timidity. In the square-inch spiritual realm, there was a precedent that the charm of green oyster was scared to death. It's just that cicada, a little girl, has a lot of guts. She ran to her dead room at night and asked if her house was haunted. Tian always does what he says. Since he agrees to have a big meal, he will not fool in with a small stall. Instead, he chooses the best Prince Wine restaurant in Nanhai City. "Don't be so troublesome, sir. We can eat a little at any shop." Ching gets out of the car and sees Prince Jiuxuan. He immediately waves to Tian. "No trouble, I just missed the taste here." Tian looks at the signboard of the prince's wine pavilion. It's complicated. When his parents were alive, they often brought him here for dinner. At that time, a meal of 5,000 or 6,000 or more was nothing to him. But he hasn't been here for a long time since his parents died. What's more, according to what he saw and heard in Fangsu and Lingyu, the charm of green oyster is something that is not short of money in the world. I'm afraid people have eaten all the delicious things in Nanhai for a long time. The place they went to is too low grade. I'm afraid they don't like it. Seeing Tian's resolute attitude, she didn't stop him anymore, but her eyes were a little melancholy. Tian invited himself and the cicada to eat such a good meal. How many times must he make the meat cake to repay the favor? But now the meat is expensive. Even if you are green, life is not easy. Let's have goose feet with abalone juice, dullian abalone with okra, golden duck with sliced skin, and walnut soup with jujube. After entering the hotel, Tian did not choose any seats for healthcare. Instead, he found a window seat in the hall, picked up the menu and ordered 5 or 6 dishes. The cicada didn't listen to a dish name, so his eyes lit up, his speed of eating melon seeds increased, and his saliva flowed along the corner of his mouth. Ching was restless and worried. I'm afraid I can't afford to make 8 or 10 meat cakes in this grade. Look what you want. At this time, Tian gave the menu to Chen Ching and said with a smile. Enough. She waved her hand and looked frightened. Look what you want to eat. Tian smiles and hands the menu to the cicada. Well, this and this. The cicada is totally impolite. He points to the menu, pokes and adds 5 or 6 dishes. Then he shakes his head and leans on the chair, giggling and unconsciously stuffing the melon seeds into his mouth. She looks strange and adds so many dishes. It's not 10 or 8 meat cakes. It's only 20 or 30. Thinking about her shy purse, she can't help pinching the cicada. The prince's wine restaurant served the dishes very fast. After a while, more than 10 dishes were on the table. The cicada can't even knock the melon seeds. He holds the chopsticks tightly and looks at the green and the leaf sky eagerly. Eat it. Tian smiles and picks up chopsticks to pick up a dish. As soon as the cicada saw Tian's action, he immediately carried chopsticks to his mouth. She pinched the cicada. Seeing that she didn't respond, she could only smile awkwardly at Tian. But when she stretched out her chopsticks, she was so excited that her hands trembled slightly. What's the matter with these two young ghosts? How can they make people feel that they should not be short of money in the world? They are some poor. Delicious, delicious. The cicada grasps a chicken leg in one hand, and its mouth is full of oil. It is still humming. Cicada, pay attention to the image, don't be like a hungry ghost. Green embarrassed Chong Tian smile, and then to cicada low voice. I haven't eaten such a delicious food for a long time. It's no different from starving ghosts. What's more, you eat well, but you don't taste better than me. The cicada skimmed his little mouth, muttered and chewed. It was sweet. She was so embarrassed that she didn't know whether to move her chopsticks. As the cicada said, her eating style is gentle, but the speed of picking vegetables is just like flying. No way. She hasn't eaten such delicious food for a long time. It's okay. I'll eat whatever I like. I'll have a better appetite if I see her eating happily. Tian waved his hand with a smile, and then said to the cicada, don't worry, eat slowly. If it's not enough, we'll order more. Well, I'll have roast duck and roast chicken, too. The cicada was not polite to Tian at all. He nodded and immediately asked for more food. Tian nodded with a smile, then asked the waiter to serve another roast chicken and duck, and asked the cicada for a cup of hawthorn water to eat. However, his eyes were more curious. He didn't care if he ate more or less, but the two of them looked like they hadn't eaten such good food for a long time. Chingni never lacks money, but where did they spend it? Son of a bitch, I haven't suffered so much since I was so old. Let's make an agreement. You must help me find this place. At this time, along the door of the hotel, a few young people swaggered in, one by one dressed in luxurious clothes, followed by a large group of bodyguards. At first sight, they were the sons of rich and poor families. However, although these people were born in a rich family, their voice was loud and noisy, and they were rude and had no quality. How is it? Tian takes a glance and immediately sees that the person who swears is Lin Feng, who has been cleaned up by him before. Lying trough. At the same time, Lin Feng's eyes also saw Tian. When he was stunned, he could not help scolding. Lin Xiao, what's the matter? With a few rich and young beside Lin Feng, surprised to see Lin Feng asked, don't understand how he's suddenly so big reaction. That grandson hit me last time. Lin Feng pointed to Tian and gritted his teeth. Then he strode over and glanced at the table. Then he sneered, you're not so lucky. You run into me again. Who are these two around you? Are they so hungry? Don't tell me, this is your little liar. As soon as Lin Feng's voice fell, the rich and young people behind him came over with their bodyguards, creating a very oppressive momentum. The charm of green mango is timid. When she looks at this posture, she can't help shivering. You're wrong. It's not my bad luck, but your bad luck. Tian glanced at Lin Feng and said faintly, I'm having dinner with my friends. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. If you are wise, go away now. I'm not a little liar, you apologize to me. But the cicada, with great courage, stands up and stares at Lin Feng in a loud voice. Sorry? I'm such a bitch. You're such a starving ghost. You deserve me to apologize? I'm fucking Lin Feng didn't expect that a little girl would dare to challenge him. Two groups of anger rose in her eyes, raised her arm, and then she pulled at the cicada's cheek. Pop. Before Lin Feng's words were finished, a crisp sound suddenly exploded. His body turned 2 circles in the same place, and his back teeth flew out with blood foam. 3 of them fell to the ground, and the world in front of him was brilliant. She's right. People who do wrong just want to apologize. Since you don't want to apologize, I'll help you. Yi Tian toward by his slap in the face of the ground. Lin Fong swept an indifference way. I'll beat your second uncle, brothers, beat him. Lin Fong covered his face and got up. His eyes were red. He pointed to Yi Tian and scolded. Listen to his words, that several rich and young with the bodyguard of the side, toward the Leaf Day rushed to come over. For a moment, the whole restaurant was in a mess. Timid people rushed out, and some people even took out their mobile phones to shoot videos. He was so scared that he shivered all over and pulled the cicada tightly around him. His originally slightly black face turned white now. It's hard for me. Yi Tian shakes his head, reaches for a copy, grabs a chicken bone left by a cicada and throws it forward. Oh! With a burst of hiss, the guy at the front immediately covered his mouth and screamed. The weak chicken bone, in Yi Tian's hand, just like a flying knife, smashed into the cargo's mouth and broke two of his teeth, causing blood to flow. What's more, the chicken bone got stuck in his throat. He couldn't swallow it or spit it out. Good fight, beat them hard, beat these big idiots. The cicada leaned out his head from behind him and looked at the scene happily. His black face was red and he clapped hard to cheer for Yi Tian. Troughs, kill them. When they heard the cicada's words, they were very angry. One by one, they waved their fists and strode forward. Brush! The next second, Yi Tian grabs a lot of broken chicken bones with a burst of air-breaking sound, and flies forward. She hissed in a flash. The sound of cutting the body with a sharp blade suddenly sounded, and I saw that a large number of chicken bones, like a small throwing knife, hit the bodyguards and the rich and young, just like hitting tofu, and went in. For a moment, the front few people were all tied up like hedgehogs, blood was flowing, and they were more sad than the previous one. A group of waste, really boring. Big brother did not help, you fell down, really boring. Compared with the pain of the flesh, Cicada's face is full of boredom and disdain. That's a pricking heart. He Ching looks at Yi Tian in amazement. In addition to being surprised, his eyes are constantly changing. He seems to be alert and hesitant. Sorry. At this time, Yi Tian has come to Lin Fong's body, a foot on his chest, condescending. Lousy is the Lin family poof. Lin Fonggang wanted to threaten, but Yi Tian's strength suddenly increased. With a dull sound of click, a mouthful of blood immediately came out of his mouth. Around those rich and young bodyguards, panic looking at Yi Tian, but dare not step forward. A handful of chicken bones will tie them into hedgehogs. If they come forward again, in case of a cool heart, the immortal Daruo will not be able to mend their holes. Sorry. Yi Tian light way. Yes, I'm sorry. Lin Fong wants to scold a few words, but looking at Yi Tian's eyes, he only thinks that he will put cruel words again. He is afraid that he will be trampled to death. He can only tremble and say, "Didn't you eat?" It's so quiet. The strength of Yi Tian's feet increased again. Lin Fong immediately snorted. Seeing that Yi Tian was going to increase his strength again, he quickly endured the pain and said in his voice, "I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Please forgive me." That's a bit of an apology. Yi Tian nodded with satisfaction, then said faintly, "But sincerity is not enough. We'll have a good meal. What do you say if you disturb us?" I'll pay. For fear of being trampled to death by Yi Tian, Lin Fong quickly recognizes counsels. Very good, attitude, sincerity, go to the front desk. Yi Tian smiles indifferently, and then steps on Lin Fong and kicks forward. The bottom of the goods is as close to the ground as four wheels. It rubs forward all the way. After knocking over a lot of tables, chairs and benches, it hits the front desk with a thump. No wonder Yan Bing likes to say that he rubs people under his feet. It turns out that this feeling is really good. In the future, it seems that we can try more. Yi Tian takes back his feet, after taste the feeling just now, with a touch of radiant at the corner of his mouth. After this toss, Lin Fong almost fainted. But the next second, the scene that made him feel more faint appeared. Yi Tianxiao glanced at him, raised his voice and said in a loud voice, "Let's eat and drink. All the news today will be paid by Mr. Lin. Silly pig, I'll always come to Big Brother for trouble in the future, so we'll have a free meal every day."
Cicada heard this, cheering at the same time. Do not forget to Lin Feng's advice. Lin Fengben was hit by 7 meat and 8 vegetables. When he heard this, he was blinded and passed out.
There is no better way to kill people than that. An hour later, the three finished their meal. Of course, the cicada didn't save anything for Lin Feng, and packed a lot of delicious food. Thank you, Mr. Yi.
He Ching looks at the cicada with his belly outstretched. He looks like a general who has won a battle, and he looks embarrassed and confronts Yi Tian Dao.
It's okay. I wish you thought so. I didn't pay for it anyway. Yi Tian waved his hand and said with a smile. Thank you or thank you.
In the future, I'll make more meat cakes for you. She shook her head again and again, and then said in a hurry.
Good. Yi Tian didn't refuse and nodded with a smile.
She was relieved, and then a touch of sadness appeared in her eyes.
There are so many things and so many human feelings. How many meat cakes do you need to return?
However, when she saw the cicada in high spirits, she couldn't help but feel sad.
This child, suffering. Where does the cicada know what she's thinking? She's carrying the packed food, singing a tune, and eating melon seeds while walking.
I don't know how her little belly holds so many things. I have something to say to my elder brother.
I'll go back later. Back in the lane of the rented house, the cicada looks at her and laughs.
She hesitated for a moment, nodded, said thanks to Yi Tian, and left. Big brother, in fact, on the day I sent you meat cakes, I saw some bad people come into your yard.
The cicada waited until the green left, some embarrassed looking at him, the way.
So you ask me if I'm afraid of ghosts, and you say if I'm afraid of ghosts, I can go. Yi Tian picks an eyebrow to smile, looking at the cicada to tease away.
The cicada nodded in embarrassment. The bad guys won't come back.
Yi Tian laughed, reached out and rubbed the cicada's head, and said, of course, even if you come again, you won't be afraid. As I said before, I live here. No matter big or small, I'm afraid of me.
Well.
Thank you, big brother. The cicada nodded, then grabbed the melon seeds and hopped along the alley.
This little girl, melon seed is her life.
Yi Tian looks at the little girl's way of walking like a flying arrow, and she doesn't forget to grab the melon seeds and put them in her mouth.
She can't help laughing. But soon, Yi Tian converged, went back to his room, and continued to practice Sui Wangwen.
It's time to practice, especially on the earth where spirit is scarce. At the same time, in the house at the end of the alley, cicada hopped into the door. In the yard, some helpless cicada Ching was relieved to see her coming back.
I don't know why. I always think Mr. Yi looks at me strangely.
He seems to know my identity. Following closely, she looks at the cicada, a little nervous and worried.
Is he in love with you?
He is so young, he can fight, and he can invite us to eat delicious food. It seems that it's good for him to be my stepfather.
Or I'll call him Uncle Yi later? The cicada's big black eyes blink and smile.
Little girl, let you talk nonsense. When she heard this, she could not help thinking about the handsome face she had just left. A few blushes immediately appeared on her face, and she was about to pinch cicada's face.
The cicada is about to run when it hears the sound.
As he runs, he does not forget to reach into his pocket to catch the melon seeds. But only 2 or 3 of them were caught.
The melon seeds are finished again.
The cicada pitifully opens her hand to the green stall. You little debt collector. When she heard this, she didn't want to pinch the cicada's face. She sighed, stretched out her finger and pointed at the cicada's brain door. Her face was worried, and she put her hands together.
She said, God Buddha is here. This is really the last time. I will never be able to do it again. You said it was the last time, didn't you?
The cicada blinked and said with a smile. When she heard the speech, she stared at the cicada awkwardly.
The cicada vomited out her tongue and didn't dare to say a word again. I'll buy melon seeds for you, little debt collector. You stay at home honestly. He sighed, turned, and walked into the room.
A moment later, with a big black plastic bag in his hand, he told the cicada with pale and weak face, and then walked out the door. It's all you who are so frustrated. I know she doesn't like to do it most, but let her do it for you.
The cicada nodded and sat in the yard, looking at her back.
For the first time, her heartless face showed some sad looks. She rubbed her nose and sucked hard. Then she hid her mouth and muttered.
One night without words, soon to the next morning. There is an ancient Chinese class at 8 in the morning. Yi Tian gets up early and goes to school. Yi Tian, come out with me.
As soon as he arrived at the door of the classroom, Yi Tian saw that Su Lai was also in the classroom, chatting with teacher Guwen in high spirits. When he saw him, he waved and said.
Guwen teacher smiles at Yi Tian, his eyes are full of fun. Let's go.
Yi Tianjiang is worried that Su Lai doesn't look for him. After hearing this, he looks at him and says. Seeing this, Shixiong quickly grabbed Yi Tian and said in a low voice, this guy is a teacher.
He's a teacher. I think you'd better tell your sister-in-law that she's better than you. I have nothing to do with her. Yi Tian was helpless. I know.
Shixiong smiles with a I understand expression.
Forget it. Yi Tian looks at Shixiong's expression and knows that the explanation is not clear. He shakes his head and then says, don't worry, I'll go and reason with him. I don't believe it. At the end of the day, what can be more reasonable than that?
After all, Yi Tian has strided out of the classroom.
Shixiong sighs. It's good for Yi Tian to reason, but the key is that Su Lai doesn't intend to reason.
Just, where does he know? Yi Tian doesn't plan to reason with Su Lai at all.
Deal with the slut, you reason with him, he must think you are afraid. Unreasonable, he will think you are really reasonable. Do you know about yesterday's absenteeism in English class and the cancellation of class performance? That's what I asked your English teacher to do at this time.
Su Lai had already taken Yi Tian to the men's toilet, lit a cigarette, smoked, and thought he was smart enough to spit out a cigarette ring, then squinted at Yi Tian and mocked.
I guess. Yi Tian nodded at will. Just guess. Su Lai nodded, then said with a smile, you are a smart man, you should know what I am for. Get away from Yan Bing. I can help you solve this problem. It's not impossible to give you a full mark. Oh. Yi Tian nods and ignores Su Lai.
He goes to the urinal, unties his belt and goes to the toilet. Su Lai saw that Yi Tian ignored himself directly.
He rushed to Yi Tian, pointed to his head and said in a cold voice, you little boy, you don't want to be shameful, do you? Believe it or not, I'll let you hang up all your subjects, and the school will dissuade you. You'd better take your hands away. I don't like people pointing at my head. Yi Tian didn't even turn his head back.
I'm not only pointing at it, but also poking at Su Lai where listen to this words, finger toward leaf day head poke.
Yi Tian smiles indifferently, turns around, and gently hooks his foot.
Su Lai immediately feels that his center of gravity is unstable.
He falls to the ground with a crack. The vertical finger doesn't have time to take it back. It just happens to poke on the ground.
With a bang sound, the vertical index finger immediately becomes a 90-degree angle with the palm.
Ah!
People like Su Lai can cry for a long time if their fingers are scratched, not to mention that their phalanges are directly broken. The sharp pain makes Su Lai tremble all over, collapse on the ground, open his mouth and scream.
Wow!
And when Su Lai screamed miserably, a pale yellow water arrow suddenly gushed out, impartial, little by little into Su Lai's mouth.
Gulong! Su Lai, who was screaming, instinctively raised his neck and swallowed a mouthful of urine before he could react.
His mouth was full of shame, which made him pale and tremble all over.
He took out his hand and tried to vomit. What he can drink is what he can spit out if he wants to. Oh.
Su Lai's face turned red and he tried to vomit, but he couldn't.
Mr. Su, when you talk about you, I've said that I don't like people pointing at me. How can you just be disobedient? I didn't mean to make you pee. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yi Tian grinned, zipped up and joked. Oh, I want to kill you.
Su Lai trembled with anger and roared loudly.
Damn, you can taste my holy water. How great is your nature? You don't appreciate me and threaten me?
Yi Tian shrugs and smiles.
You're dead.
I swear, as long as I am in school for one day, you will have no good life. I want all your classes to be scraped off. Su Lai struggled to get up from the ground, reached out and pointed to Yi Tian, and growled. Before, he dealt with Yi Tian purely because of Yan Bing, but now, in addition to the hatred of robbing Niu, he has more hatred of drinking urine. All these things made him feel that Yi Tian couldn't get rid of his anger. Why don't you listen to me, you rubbish? Fingers like to poke around so much? When Yi Tian hears this, his eyes flash and he suddenly raises his leg and kicks Su Lai's chest. Bang! He kicked Su Lai upside down and hit the toilet door with a loud thump. He stayed still for about a minute and then slowly rode down. Shame the teacher and beat the teacher. You're dead, I tell you, you're dead. Rao is so, Su Lai still looks at Yi Tian, gnashing his teeth threat more than. Are you my teacher? Yi Tian looks at Su Lai with a smile and walks slowly to him. He looks down at the pale face and says, do you think it's not good to drink urine? Do you want to taste the taste of Xiang? Xiang? Shit. Su Lai was so scared that he shivered all over, and his face was as pale as ashes. Mr. Su, why do you look so ugly? If it's body deficiency, use a little bit of human yellow to make up for it. Yi Tian smiles at Su Lai's pale face and plays with the taste. Looking at the smiling Yi Tian, Su Lai feels uncomfortable all over. Although Yi Tian's smile is very bright and friendly, it makes him feel like he is being watched by a poisonous snake and his back is cold. Yi Tian, I warn you, this is the school, you don't want to mess about. Su Lai is sweating like rain. He looks at Yi Tian and wants to threaten him. Bang! But before Su Lai finished speaking, he got a heavy kick from Yi Tian on his stomach. Suddenly, he screamed wow and covered his stomach. His body arched like a prawn, and he fell down like a raindrop in cold sweat. So you know this is a school? Yi Tian looks down at Su Lai with a sneer, and then brushes his feet, heavily sucking on Su Lai's cheek. In the blink of an eye, his face swelled up like a balloon, blue and purple, and his mouth was bleeding. This respect, gentle animal 4 words, have to remove the first 2, is pure animal. Mr. Su, do you know why I beat you? Yi Tian smiles. God, I'm wrong, I'm really wrong. Su Lai already had the impulse to curse his mother in his heart. His fist was so loud that he didn't rush to fight with Yi Tian. Instead, he prayed to Yi Tian. It's none of my business whether you are right or wrong. Yi Tianchao looked at Su Lai and kicked him in the face. 2 or 3 of his back teeth flew out, blood mixed with saliva. After the scream, he continued with a smile, you don't answer the question. You are so stupid to be a teacher, miserable. Embarrassed. The taste of kicking the soul on the face is much stronger than slapping the face. It's not only several times stronger, but also has veins on the soul, which is much more painful than slapping. Brother Tian, don't worry. I will never pester Mr. Yen again. Also, truancy, I went to them to say, give you all according to the full attendance to calculate, usual classroom performance results, all full marks. You will be my elder brother in the future. If you ask me to go east, I will never dare to go west. I will do what you ask me to do. Please let me go. Su Lai covers his face, and his whole body trembles wildly. He has no temper anymore. He looks at Yi Tian in praise. Teacher Su, you finally realized that I thought you were really stupid. Yi Tian sighed and looked at Su Lai's eyes with a smile. He said with a smile, since you listen to me so much, I'll tell you to eat excrement. Do you want to eat excrement? Aye. Su Lai couldn't express his grievance in his heart, but he didn't dare to attack at all. He was painful and oppressed. Golden beans all flowed out, Brother Tian, please, let me go. I'm really convinced. Now he is more than convinced, and his intestines will be blue. If I had known that it would be so miserable to offend Yi Tian, then even if I borrow 10 more courage from him, he would not dare to do so. How can you answer the wrong question? Yi Tian frowned, twisted his ankle, and said with a smile, my head is so stupid. It seems that I need to help you open your mind. Brother Tian, no don't. On hearing this, Su Lai struggles to kneel on the ground and kowtows to Yi Tian. No? Yi Tian shook his head, disappointed, said, "If you say that, the words you just said to me are just fooling me. In my life, others cheated me. As you said, you are also a model of others. How can you not only make secret moves so immoral, but also keep your words so dishonest? Tell your mother. I'm your sister. What has the final say?" Sulai felt the urge to curse his mother, but he slapped his head heavily on his hand and said to Yi Tian, "Brother Tian, your requirement is too high. I can't do it with my ability. In addition to this matter, you can say anything else. As long as you ask me, I will do it." "Well, how about some more?" Yi Tian glanced at him and said with a smile. Sulai's face turned pale. "Aye. Is there any difference between the two?" "Haha, just a joke. I'm so grown up that I can't afford to make a joke at all." "You're scared." At this time, Yi Tian laughs and says, "Here's a simple way. Take off yourself and run around the teaching building for 3 times. Streaking." Sulai's face turned white into a piece of paper. He can see clearly, Yi Tian this goods, today is to humiliate him, let him lose face, no longer in the school based on the possibility. As for the bubble you're in just now, it is estimated that it is only the interest that the goods collect from themselves. What? Don't you like it? Then why don't you taste it? Yi Tian picks eyebrow to smile, looking at Sulai, the ankle is moving gently. Don't. Sulai's forehead was cold and sweaty, and he shook his head in a hurry. Don't, you're really dishonest. I think I'll help you. Yi Tian light a smile, then want to lift ankle. Streaking on streaking, is not disgrace it, always better than pin xiang ah. I run. I'm running. As soon as Sulai saw this posture, he immediately figured it out in his heart. He cried and nodded. Mr. Su's words are true to his words, and he has the courage to teach and educate people. Yi Tian gave Sulai a thumbs up, then looked at the wriggling Sulai with a smile and said, "You are so old and you are not good. Do you want me to help you?" I'll take it off. Sulai is extremely unwilling, but looking at Yi Tian's appearance, he doesn't know that if Yi Tian does it, he has to suffer from skin and flesh again. He can only take off his clothes quickly, and then rush out to the toilet. Tut. As a matter of fact, Emperor Bendan is a good emperor who convinces people by reason. Yi Tian looks at Sulai's dazzling white flesh in the sun. He shakes his head and sighs twice. Then his eyes change slightly. He pulls his voice and says in a loud voice, "Damn it, Mr. Su, how can you go to the toilet without paper, wipe your bottom with your clothes, fall into the pit and run naked?" Boom! After Yi Tian's full of air, the classroom building was like a beehive. With a sudden sound, countless black heads, no matter whether they were in class or not, came out along the window. No paper in the toilet, wipe your bottom with your clothes, streaking. There are too many keywords in Yi Tian's short sentence, and the amount of information is too large, so they are not curious. Wow, Teacher Su is really running with his bare butt. Oh, it's amazing, fierce man. Tut, this figure, this fat, hot eyes. Mr. Su, turn around and let's have a close-up. Let's see the headlines at the party. Then, when I saw the picture of Su Liaguang running downstairs, the students were boiling like the tide, screaming, whistling and joking. A sound of ridicule, a ponder, is full of running Sulai, just feel like a knife into his back, so that he almost did not faint in the past. But he understood that after today's event, he would have no place in Nanhai University. Even if the headmaster doesn't fire him, he has no face to stay. Lying trough, the leaf is so unreasonable. Sure Xiong stared at the picture outside the window. He was stunned for a long time and uttered a rude sentence. Not only Sure Xiong, but the rest of the class also hissed and gasped. They saw with their own eyes that Sulai called Yi Tian out. Now Sulai has become this virtue. Can it have nothing to do with Yi Tian? Report. At this time, Yi Tian has come to the door of the class and shouts at the teacher of ancient prose. Yi Tian, come in, you have something to go out. It's not malicious. You can't shout a report. Remember, later in front of the teacher, don't be so polite. It doesn't matter if you don't come to the teacher's class in the future. I know you are a good student. You must have mastered all the courses. As soon as the teacher saw Yi Tian, he thought about Su Lai's tragedy again. A layer of sweat came out of his forehead, and a warm smile came out of the corner of his mouth.
Thank you, teacher. I have something else to do. Let's go first. Yi Tian nodded to the teacher of Guwen.
Without saying a word, he turned and left. He has no interest in ancient Chinese textbooks, and he can remember them after reading them.
Staying in class is a waste of time. It's better to practice. Where did teacher Guwen think that Yi Tian had really left? For a moment, she couldn't help looking silly. Look at Yi Tian, how polite and sensible he is. You should learn from him. Guwen teacher's eyelids jumped, coughed, and said to the students.
He is very worried that the students under the platform, who will be the years of Yi Tian, will be as unlucky as Su Lai. But at this time, because of the English class, Yi Tian didn't rent the house back. Instead, he came to the school's artificial lake and found a quiet place where there was no one, so he was ready to practice.
Brother Taoren, I finally caught you again. But Yi Tian hasn't sat down yet. A middle-aged man rushes out along the side. He hugs Yi Tian and laughs. What can I do for you?
Yi Tian glanced at the middle-aged man and frowned.
This middle-aged man is not the guy who was kicked into the lake by him yesterday. I'm going to learn boxing from Brother Nyoren. I'm going to learn the kind of boxing that can knock people into the water with one fist.
The middle-aged man grinned and his eyes brightened.
You can't learn my fist. Don't disturb me. Let's go. Yi Tian shook his head, light way.
His boxing, without any boxing skills, is based on the idea of Sui Wangwen.
No one else can learn this kind of boxing. Moreover, even if middle-aged people can learn, how can they teach? I'm not his father. You don't know who I am? The middle-aged man looked at Yi Tian suspiciously, touched his chin and said,
If you make so much noise again, I don't mind helping you recognize yourself. With indifference, Yi Tian sat down on his knees and began to practice.
He didn't want to talk to this man anymore. I'll go.
The middle-aged man stares at Yi Tian and scratches his head. When he sees that Yi Tian has closed his eyes light up and he jumps up with a fist and smashes it heavily at Yi Tian's chest.
I don't know. But as soon as the middle-aged man's fist approached, Yi Tian's right hand flashed and held his wrist. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't shake it. Then Yi Tian shook his hand heavily. Wow! In a flash, the middle-aged man's body flew upside down like a kite, and then fell into the lake 5 or 6 meters away. The water splashed all over the bank like a torrential rain. Immediately after that, Yi Tian gets up and starts to look for other quiet places in a hurry. A master is a master, with personality. I don't believe it. As long as you are a student in this school, I can't be your apprentice.
At the same time, the middle-aged man splashed in the water for a while, and finally landed successfully. After wiping his face with his hand, he looked at the direction of Yi Tian's departure, his eyes shining, and his expression became more determined. An hour and a half later, Yi Tian finished his work and came to the teaching building of his English class.
Yi Tian, I'm really disappointed in you. Yi Tian gang is ready to go upstairs.
Just as class 3 of the engineering class is over, Su Cheng, with a gloomy look, changes her eyes when she sees Yi Tian Ho. Then she smiles bitterly and coldly.
This woman, nerves. Yi Tian shook his head speechless.
But he didn't want to talk to Su Cheng, an unimportant man, and went straight to the teaching building.
In his eyes, I'm only worth 1 million. Looking at Yi Tian's appearance, Su Cheng's eyes are more dark and murmur.
But Su Cheng, who was so lost, didn't know that Yi Tian had taken the so-called 1 million.
More accurately, today she is in Yi Tian's heart. 1 million is really overestimated. To be exact, today she, as far as Yi Tian is concerned, is worthless. Yet Ian, what happened yesterday is actually a misunderstanding. I don't know, you didn't come to class because of something. Teacher Su instigated you to say that you are disrespectful and want me to punish you heavily. The teacher is wrong. Come on, smoke.
At the same time, after learning that Su Lai left the classroom, the English teacher who had been guarding outside the classroom early, saw Yi Tian and immediately piled up a layer of guilt on his face, mixed with a flattering smile. He invited Yi Tian to one side and nodded his head in ways to apologize. His chubby hand also took out a bag of soft food from his pocket and stuffed it into Yi Tian's hand. However, when he said these words, he felt ashamed. It's always the students who please him. However, did he please the students? Unfortunately, now there is no way. This student named Yi Tian, suddenly a little too much. He really didn't want to end up with a miserable end like Su Lai, who ran around the campus with his bare butt and was surrounded by people.
I don't smoke. Can I not come to the next class?
Yi Tianbai waved his hand and refused the cigarette from his English teacher.
Instead, he went straight to the road.
Don't worry, Yi classmate, you are so excellent, whether you come or not is the same, I promise, when the final exam, your score will be brilliant. Hearing this, the English teacher nodded in a hurry and vowed. That appearance, only difference said that before the examination, the paper answer leaked to Yi Tian, let Yi Tian casually take a full score.
That's good.
I'll go first. Yi Tian nodded at will, and then walked out of the teaching building.
Nowadays, he doesn't pay much attention to class.
The reason why he still stays on campus is that his parents have been expecting him to graduate smoothly and get his diploma.
This is the last wish of his parents.
In the past, he couldn't fulfill their wish, but now, if he can do it, how can he let them down in Zhochuan? English teachers have such an attitude now, so it is estimated that there will be no difference in the attitude of teachers of other courses. He can graduate with good grades without class, and he doesn't waste his time of cultivation.
Why don't he? Su Zhaoyun, now it's our turn to settle the accounts.
After walking out of the teaching building, Yi Tianchao looks at the dazzling sun above his head, suddenly pinches his 5 fingers tightly, and a touch of chill passes through his eyes. Midnight to Fenkishan Su Villa is the best choice, so Yi Tian is not in a hurry to start, but first back to rent.
What are you doing here? Just as he entered the rental house, Yi Tian saw a handsome young man standing in the courtyard. This person is Yen Zhouxiao, the son of Yen, whom Yi Tian met in Su's villa before. It's no wonder that you are still a thief to Su Qing. How can you live in such a shabby doghouse without admiring the life of a big villa?
Those who don't know their fate are damned. Yen Zhouxiao sweeps his eyes at the dilapidated environment of the rented house and looks at Yi Tian playfully.
It was for Su Qing.
There was no expression on Yi Tian's face and a sneer in his heart. He was able to find out that this life he lived again, because women really caused a lot of trouble. However, if Yen Zhouxiao doesn't come, he will come just in time. Before that, when he was in the Su villa, Yi Tian suspected that Yen Zhouxiao had something to do with the death of his parents. Since this guy came here, he saved him the trouble of looking for the goods.
Hand in the money your parents left behind, and then leave the city. The farther you go, the better. I can consider giving you a way to live.
Yen Zhouxiao saw Yi Tian's look and threatened coldly.
You did my parents' business?
When Yi Tian heard the words money left by his parents, he suddenly felt cold and said in a cold voice.
In their capacity, it's not up to me.
Yen Zhouxiao lied, then wait, don't want to die, I suggest you had better obediently listen to my words.
The death of his parents is really related to the mountain gate behind Yen Zhouxiao.
Yi Tian's heart is full of ups and downs, and his eyes are swept away. Without saying a word, he slowly turns around and closes the door.
So you're not going to cooperate? In that case, I'll have to send you to see your parents.
Yen Zhouxiao sees that Yi Tian is closed, and his face is also suddenly cold. Then he jumps up and punches at Yi Tian's back heart.
Brush. But Yi Tianho's head is like eyes. Almost at the moment when Yen Zhouxiao's fist approaches, he suddenly turns around, and his whole body's mana surges, smashes at Yen Zhouxiao. Bang!
In an instant, the two fists collided with each other heavily.
Yi Tianwen didn't move.
Yen Zhouxiao retreated 2 steps back.
You're from the mountains, too? It's impossible. Yen Zhouxiao stands firm and clenches his shaking right fist. He looks at Yi Tian in disbelief and exclaims.
Shanmen carefully investigated the situation of the Yi family. There was no mountain people up and down the Yi family, and they had nothing to do with the mountain people. That's why they chose to fight against the Yi family.
But now, the strength of Yi Tian's fist is obviously possessed by mountain people. Is there something wrong with the information? In other words, what chance did the boy need after his parents died?
But even so, in such a short time, how could he have such a strong fighting power? You'll see more impossibilities soon. Yi Tian coldly wave right fist, jump body then toward Yan Zhouxiao to rush past.
This fist is extremely powerful, and the murderer is exposed. It firmly locks Yan Zhouxiao.
Although Yan Zhouxiao said that his parents' affairs were not his own, he did not deny that his parents' death was related to him. Revenge for his parents, this is Yi Tian's obsession, but also in the square-inch spiritual realm of 200 years of practice regret. This life finally had the opportunity of revenge, how can he miss it?
Even if you become a mountain person, but in my eyes, you are still a mole ant.
After a short shock, Yan Zhouxiao regained his composure, put away all his contempt, and turned his whole body towards Yi Tian.
Bang!
When the two fists intersected, Yi Tian and Yan Zhouxiao immediately retreated at the same time, but Yi Tian only retreated half a step, while Yan Zhouxiao retreated 2 steps to stabilize his figure.
Not only that, Yan Zhouxiao's hand is constantly shaking. Yellow Peak Yan Zhouxiao's eyes were full of horror, and 4 words came out of his mouth.
His cultivation is now in the later stage of the yellow level, but Yi Tian's fist has caused him such damage.
Besides the peak of the yellow level, there is no other explanation for his strength. It's just, how can this boy have such profound cultivation? Yellow Peak? Is that how I compare with the people on the mountain? Yi Tian's eyes flashed, but he didn't bother to pay attention to it.
Then he looked at Yan Zhouxiao and said coldly, "Tell me everything about my parents."
"I'll give you a good time." "Ha ha ha, you dare to say that to me? Yi Tian, what do you think you are? Even if you are really the Yellow Peak, you have to kneel down and beg me today."
Yan Zhouxiao hears the sound, and his eyes are shocked. He grabs his hand at the back of his waist and draws out a whip hidden behind his waist. As soon as his hand shakes, the shadow of the whip is wrapped towards Yi Tian.
How fast? Yi Tian looked at the fierce whip shadow and immediately stepped back.
Now he is only on the 2nd floor of the cave, and his flesh is not as strong as gold and iron, so he does not dare to snatch each other's whip. Especially as far as he can see, there are many fine metal thorns on Yan Zhouxiao's long whip.
If he grabs them rashly, his hands will be stabbed into a sieve.
However, the yard is too small, and Yan Zhouxiao's whip, shaking open, is nearly 2 meters long. Yi Tian even dodges, but his arm is still swept by the whip. In an instant, a hot stabbing pain immediately sweeps his heart. Yi Tian lowered his head and aimed at his eyes, and immediately saw that on his right arm, he had been scratched off a layer of skin by the metal thorn on the whip.
"Ha ha ha, Yi Tian, please kneel down and beg for mercy for me."
Yan Zhouxiao see a whip work, more powerful and unforgiving, hand whip shake out bull mouth big whip flower, toward Yi Tian roll again.
Sure enough, it's 1 inch long and 1 inch strong. Yi Tian's brow is slightly wrinkled.
He knows that in this narrow yard, if he just evades each other's whip, he will fall behind and suffer a lot of injuries.
In that case, let's meet the tough.
As soon as Yi Tian's face sank, he immediately made a decision in his heart. Without hesitation, he suddenly stretched out his hand and locked the whip firmly.
After calculating the landing point, he raised his hand and grabbed it. "Ha ha ha, I wanna die."
Yan Zhouxiao was shocked and immediately burst out laughing. He did not expect that Yi Tian would dare to catch the whip full of metal spikes in such a fierce whip shadow.
"This boy, I'm afraid he is slow to die." Hiss.
At this time, Yi Tian's left hand has tightly grasped the whip. In an instant, a deep stabbing pain immediately swept the whole body. Even if you don't look, Yi Tian can guess that his left hand must have been pricked by metal spikes.
Go to hell. Yan Zhouxiao's eyes are not half flustered when he grabs the whip.
Instead, he shows a ferocious smile. He pulls the whip with all his strength. He wants to bring more pain to Yi Tian with the help of the metal thorns that deeply pierce Yi Tian's palm, forcing him to let go, and then retake the control of the whip.
To Yan Zhouxiao's surprise, he suddenly pulled it. Yi Tian didn't notice the pain of the metal spikes shaking in the flesh of his palm.
His 5 fingers were still holding the whip tightly, and he didn't waver at all.
That kind of feeling made Yen Zhouxiao feel that his long whip seemed to be entangled in an iron pillar that weighed more than 10,000 jin, just like shaking a tree, which could not be shaken at all. This guy is not afraid of pain at all? Yen Zhouxiao was shocked, and his eyes were full of disbelief. 10 fingers linked to one's heart, not to mention the whole hand was pierced by sharp thorns, such pain, simply unbearable. Brush. And at this time, Yi Tian's hand suddenly shakes, a little gold on, carrying the fierce wind, accurately hit Yen Zhouxiao's chest. That touch of golden on, fast to the extreme, sharp to the peak, Yen Zhouxiao did not have time to do any reaction. He felt that the chest suddenly a cool, closely followed, after his own do was a sound. It was obvious that the golden on had penetrated his body and entered the courtyard wall behind him. You? Yen Zhouxiao bowed his head in amazement, and his eyes passed by. He saw that there was a bright blood hole in his chest. The blood was like a spring, splashing all over the ground. Before he finished a word, he fell to the ground and died. Hiss. Yi Tian takes a deep breath, shakes his hand and throws the whip to one side. At the moment, his left hand is already a piece of flesh and blood, and he can hardly see a complete piece of good meat in his palm. But Yi Tian knows that it's the only way to solve the crisis. If he can't bear the pain, he can't solve Yen Zhouxiao with a whip. As for Yen Zhouxiao can't understand that he was stabbed by the metal tip of the whip, but he still didn't move. The answer is actually very simple. Because the pain brought by the whip, compared with the pain that his parents left, but he could not help, it was less than 1 in 10,000. It's not a joke if the enemy who murdered his parents is in front of him and he gives up because of a little pain. However, it's a pity that Yen Zhouxiao was killed in this way and he didn't get any useful information out of his mouth. Su Zhaoyun, believe me, you will not die so easily. Yi Tian simply bandaged the wound and examined Yen Zhouxiao's body. After confirming that there was no treasure of mountain people on him, he took out the bottle of kojic acid and dropped a drop on Yen Zhouxiao's body. It's too late. The acid drips down. In a flash, an unpleasant smell of smoke rises from Yen Zhouxiao's body. Just a few minutes later, Yen Zhouxiao's body is burned to black charcoal. Yi Tian took 2 buckets of water and washed away the blood and charcoal on the ground. Then he picked up the long whip and went back to the room to adjust his mind. Yen Zhouxiao is the first person to die in his hands. However, the first killing did not put too much psychological burden on Yi Tian. After 200 years of cultivation, he has long been indifferent to life and death. Moreover, Yen Zhouxiao is one of the enemies who killed his parents, and he will not be compassionate. In a flash of time, it was midnight. Yi Tian spread out his left hand and looked at it. After confirming that his left hand had stopped bleeding and would not affect the activity, he left the yard, took a taxi and went straight to Fengqi Mountain. It's hard to hit a car late at night. Yi Tian waited for a long time before he got a car. This makes him feel that he should buy a car. No matter what happens in the future, or where he goes to find the elixirs suitable for improvement, it will be much more convenient. After the taxi arrived at Fengqi Mountain, Yi Tian got out of the car, and then shuttled all the way along the dense forest, and soon came to the periphery of Su's villa. In the dense forest, there are several bodyguards invited by Su Zhaoyun to guard. It's just midnight when people are sleepy. Those guys are smoking to refresh themselves. Yi Tian stealthily approaches and picks up some stones from the ground. After mana operation, he knocks them to the ground. Then he takes off the coat of a guy who is similar to his body shape and goes to the monitoring room. The night is gloomy, and you can't see people's faces clearly. At this time, the bodyguards in the monitoring room also take it lightly. Yi Tian just knocks on the door, and someone opens the door. Bang! As soon as the door opens a crack, Yi Tian rushes in. With a few punches, he puts all the security guards in the monitoring room on the ground, and then closes the monitoring of the whole villa. From this moment on, Su Zhaoyun's tortoise shell completely became deaf and blind. After solving all this, Yi Tian swaggered into the villa. You're not on duty outside. What are you doing in here? As soon as he entered the villa, several bodyguards came out from the dark and looked at him in a deep voice. I found that several cameras in the room didn't respond in the monitoring room. Let me have a look. Yi Tian answered in a thick voice. There's something wrong with the camera in the room, haven't you just checked it? The bodyguards frowned and looked at the location of the camera with some doubts. Brush.
Almost at the moment when they turn their heads, Tian, like a sensitive cheetah, jumps up to the bodyguards and punches them one by one, knocking them unconscious on the ground. And when Tian lifted the hem of their clothes, sure enough, each guy's waist was stuffed with a gun.
It's dangerous. Tian's eyes flashed, and he got away with it.
If he had not come to the villa once before with Su Qing, he knew the security situation of the villa well, and made arrangements in advance. Otherwise, once there was a mistake, the other party would be in trouble.
When the last line of defense was destroyed, Tian strode into the villa and directly touched Su Zhaoyun's room. To Tian's surprise, Su Zhaoyun is not in the master bedroom. Isn't the old man living in the villa today?
Tian saw this and frowned, but immediately, he spread out and rushed to the guest room.
Who are you?
When the door opened, a dark shadow immediately got up from the bed, holding a gun in hand, and yelled at Tianling. Tian saw this and couldn't help laughing. The old man was so timid and scared to death that he didn't dare to sleep in the master bedroom at night, but in the guest room.
So soon, I don't even know you?
Next, Tian reaches out and lights up the light in the guest room. He looks at Su Zhaoyun, who is half sitting on the bed with a gun in his hand.
He sneers. Tian, are you a human or a ghost?
Su Zhaoyun made Ling Ling shiver. Then he held the gun in his hands and exclaimed.
Sure enough, you helped Yan Zhouxiao find where I lived. Tian laughs at Su Zhaoyun's appearance.
When he found Yan Zhouxiao in the rental house, he realized that it was Su Zhaoyun who helped Yan Zhouxiao find his own residence. Now, as soon as Su Zhaoyun saw him, he asked him, is it a human or a ghost, that confirmed his conjecture. What's more, Su Zhaoyun already knew that Yan Zhouxiao was going to kill him.
Tian, don't do anything stupid. Su Zhaoyun's eyelids jumped, and the muzzle of the gun aimed at Tian, word by word.
He felt that today's Tian seemed very different from the past. Even, I felt a sense of extreme danger from him.
This kind of feeling is even stronger than when he is facing Yan Zhouxiao. I ask you, what does the death of my parents have to do with you? What's more, why do you listen to Yan Zhouxiao?
Tian sees that Su Zhaoyun is holding a gun in his hand.
He doesn't have any fear in his eyes. He just stares at Su Zhaoyun's eyes and says in a cold voice. Don't make me go now, I'll let you go. Otherwise, I'll shoot you.
As soon as Su Zhaoyun hears Tian's mention of his parents, he becomes flustered and holds the trigger tightly.
Shoot me?
Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Tian looks up and laughs, touches his hand behind his waist, holds the whip in his hand, and suddenly shakes at Su Zhaoyun.
At the same time, Su Zhaoyun's fingers also forced to pull the trigger. Brush. But although Su Zhaoyun's action is fast, Tian's action is even more rapid.
When the whip is thrown out, it immediately entangles his hand with the gun as if he had eyes.
Ah!
Metal spikes into the meat. Su Zhaoyun immediately a pig-like scream. Immediately, Tian hand gently shake. Su Zhaoyun in the hand of the gun, immediately flew to his hand.
Su Zhaoyun, are you going to tell the truth all by yourself? Or do you want me to tell you the truth for you?
Tian holds the barrel of the gun and twists it with both hands. After twisting the barrel into a twist, he looks at Su Zhaoyun, who has already looked like the earth, and says word by word. Su Zhaoyun stares at Tian, almost can't believe his eyes.
He really can't understand. This is almost equal to his own eyes to see the growth of young. Now how can have such a powerful skill, even powerful to make him feel incredible? Since you don't want to say it, I'll have to help you. At this time, Tian looks at Su Zhaoyun's stunned appearance, his eyes are stunned, and his whip is thrown. Pop! In a flash, the whip hits Su Zhaoyun's chest heavily. The pajamas are light and thin.
With this heavy blow, Su Zhaoyun screams and a bloody scar appears on his chest.
Say it or not.
Tian shakes his whip and looks at Su Zhaoyun. He continues to ask coldly.
Say I said. Su Zhaoyun looked at Tian in horror. Because of the sting, his facial features twisted into a ball and said, the death of Hong Lion Musiai is really related to me. The death of his parents is really related to him.
Tian's eyes were cold, and his whip was suddenly raised.
Pop! With a crisp sound, the whip hit Su Zhaoyun's left shoulder a little heavily. In his fury, Tian almost exhausted all his strength. Along Su Zhaoyun's left shoulder, there was a whip mark with 2 fingers deep. The blood and flesh were indistinct, and the bones of Mori Ran could be seen. Pop! But even so, Tian still did not have any stagnation. One after another is 67 whip to throw in the past. Each whip fell, and along Su Zhaoyun's mouth, there was a howl like killing a pig. Just in the blink of an eye, his whole body was sealed with bloodstains. The whole person was like a fish out of blood. Even on his face, there was a blood stain that ran across the whole face, half-finger deep, and the skin on both sides of the wound turned out like a child's mouth. Go on. Say what you know. After Yi Tianlian whipped a few whips, he felt a little less hatred in his heart. He was hoarse and said one word at a time. He is not a cruel man, but what Su Zhaoyun is carrying is the blood feud of murdering his parents. Not to mention, before his parents died, he and Su Zhaoyun were still excellent friends. His father took him as his brother. This kind of scum who betrays his friends, not to mention whipping him a few times, can't make Yi Tian's anger, which has been depressed for 200 years, calm down a little even if he cuts him alive. In the eyes of outsiders, the Su family looks bright and is one of the most famous families in Nanhai, but in fact, only the principal of each generation of the Su family knows that we are just a group of wage earners. The reason why the Su family was able to make a fortune in those years was that he met an expert who gave the Su family money and helped the Su family level their competitors on the road at the moment. Su Zhaoyun fully understood that in front of Yi Tian, he was just a piece of fish on the chopping board. He completely gave up the so-called resistance struggle, endured the stabbing pain, and murmured everything that the Su family has now is given by the people on the mountain. Similarly, everything that the Su family gets should be returned to the people on the mountain. So it is. Yi Tian's eyes changed slightly at the sound. When he saw Zhang Ben and Su Zhaoyun's respectful attitude towards Yan Zhouxiao, he had already guessed that the Su family might have something to do with the mountain people. Even, like some families in Fangsu and Lingyu, the Su family is the vassal of a large family. These families, while sheltered by the great sect, should create wealth for the great sect and help the disciples of the sect accumulate the resources needed for cultivation. This kind of relationship seems to be mutually beneficial, but in fact, it is totally unequal. After all, in this world, it always makes sense to be a big fist. No matter how much wealth the family creates, it is vulnerable to the powerful power of the clan. If the dependent clan asks for something from you and you don't give it, it will be a dead end. To put it bluntly, these so-called families are just the cows raised by the family. Every once in a while, you have to milk the cows. When the cows are too old to milk, kill them and eat meat. Now the Su family is the old cow. They are the monsters who drink blood. They are gluttonous. Their desires, like black holes, are endless. No matter what I do, they can't be filled at all. Over the years, they have taken countless benefits from the Su family. Seeing that the Su family is about to be ruined by them, they even want to sell everything of the Su family and make me have nothing. At this time, Su Zhaoyun's expression suddenly became distorted, gnashing his teeth and roaring. You don't want the Su family to perish, you don't want to become nothing, so you put the idea on my parents. Yi Tian heard here, everything has been understood, looking at Su Zhaoyun, cold way. The clan behind Yan Zhouxiao is very demanding of the Su family, which can be seen from Su Zhaoyun's private account. Today's Su family is on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm afraid that because Su Zhaoyun didn't want the Su family to end and he didn't want him to become penniless, he united with the people in the mountains and put his ideas on his parents. He used his wealth to fill the hole in the Su family and his parents' lives in exchange for Su Zhaoyun's life. Which sect on the mountain is the sect behind Yan Zhouxiao? Yi Tian asked coldly. He is a member of the Tai clan, one of the strongest clans on the mountain. Su Zhaoyun at this moment, or dare to hide a scent, immediately replied. Taiman. When Yi Tian heard these 3 words, his eyes suddenly became cold, and his killing opportunity overflowed. Su Zhaoyun is just an accomplice. The people of Taiman are the culprits of murdering their parents. Since you want revenge, it naturally requires a happy dripping. No matter what kind of inside information Taiman has, we must never let it go. Xiao Tian, you have to believe me. I really have to. If it wasn't for those mountain people's excessive demands, I would be desperate. No matter what, I won't harm your parents. Hong Lai is my best brother.
After that, Su Zhaoyun struggles to get up from the bed, kneels in front of Yi Tian, and kowtows like a chicken pecking rice, hoping to get Yi Tian's understanding.
Have you ever been soft-hearted when my parents begged you? Yi Tian looks at Su Zhaoyun indifferently and says coldly.
Hearing the sound, Su Zhaoyun felt as if he had been choked in the throat, and could not make any sound. Yi Honglai and his wife Musiai begged him in all ways at the beginning, hoping that he could give them a free hand in his long-term friendship.
But at that time, how could he ever be soft-hearted? Xiaotian, I know I'm wrong. Please let me go. At that time, I was really bewildered. I was intimidated by Taemin. They said that if I didn't collect all the money they wanted, I would die. As long as you are willing to let me go, I am willing to marry Qingqing to you. Didn't you like Qingqing the most before?
But just for a moment, Su Zhaoyun begged for Yi Tian again. This time, it is to take out Su Qing to tempt Yi Tian. When Yan Zhoushu was strong, you wanted to marry Su Qing to Yan Zhoushu and make friends with Taemin.
Now, you see that I am strong, and you want to marry Su Qing to me. In your eyes, is your daughter a commodity? What's more, do you think Su Qing is a sweet cake? No matter who sees it, do you want it? What you call repentance is that you are afraid of death. Hearing this, Yi Tian couldn't help laughing. Su Zhaoyun's face was earth color, and he was paralyzed on the bed. If even Su Qing can't tempt Yi Tian, then he really can't do anything. Su Zhaoyun, even if you are coerced by others, you can't get rid of the crime of selling friends for a living. Today, I will get justice for my parents. Yi Tian glances coldly at Su Zhaoyun. With a shake of the whip in his hand, he twines tightly around Su Zhaoyun's neck like a snake coming out of the cave. Whoa! Then, with Yi Tian's hand suddenly exerting force, Su Zhaoyun's head is like a ball. Sheng Sheng is pulled down from his neck by the powerful pulling force of the whip. Blood is like a spring, gushing out of his chest and spilling all over the bed. Selling friends for a living, you're to blame. Yi Tian looks at Su Zhaoyun's eyes. After a cold sentence, he turns to the kitchen and turns on the natural gas. After a strong smell of natural gas was lingering in the air, he fell a lighter heavily on the ground. Bang! Boom! With the crackling sound of the lighter landing, the whole Su villa was immediately engulfed by the swaying flames. In a short time, the whole villa became a sea of fire. The flickering fire lights the dark sky. This terrible fire, think not long, the entire Su villa, will be burned to a white ground. As for what happened in the villa, it will become the ashes that cannot be traced. Father, mother, do you see that, my child has avenged you? Yi Tian coldly looked at the rising fire in the night, and murmured, don't worry, Su Zhaoyun is just the beginning. Those people in Tai's sect will not let go. I will take their heads to comfort your spirits in heaven. 2.5 hours later, Yi Tian returned to the rental house. Yi Tian first cleaned and bandaged the wound, then took out his mobile phone and searched the local news. Sure enough, the news that Su Zhaoyun died in a fire in Fenkishan Su Villa has made the headlines in the local news section. Because Shujia Villa is a Chinese-style building with many wooden structures, after the fire started, although the fire brigade arrived in time, when the fire was put out, Shujia Villa had become a piece of white land. The title of the picture on the front page of the news is a picture of several fire policemen pulling Su Qing, her heart splitting with tears. Looking at Su Qing's appearance, Yi Tian can't help but feel a little impatient. But if he can't bear it, he will do it again. When his parents died, how could his grief be better than Su Qing's? If we don't punish Su Zhaoyun just because Su Qing is sad, it's women's benevolence. After watching the news, Yi Tian no longer pays attention to this matter, but sits down with his knees crossed, 5 hearts to the sky, and begins to practice Sui Wang Wan. The night passed quickly. The next morning, when Yi Tian woke up from his meditation, he felt fresh and fresh. When he spread out his injured left hand, he was even more stunned. I saw yesterday's bloody left hand, but now all the wounds have healed. Does Sui Wangwen still have the ability to repair the physical injury? This scene, let Yi Tian can't help but wonder. You know,
although practitioners can absorb the aura of heaven and earth and feed themselves back, they are far superior to ordinary people in terms of physical quality and recovery speed. But even so, it is impossible for a cave to recover a bloody wound overnight, even if it is placed in a square-inch spiritual realm. Therefore, the explanation of all is that Sui Wangwen's idea has a strong vitality restoration ability. This point, even if Yi Tian and the square-inch spiritual cultivation of Qingning Road Ju do not have this ability. And this also makes Yi Tian realize that his choice of Sui Wangwen is indeed a very wise choice. In the same way, he became more and more curious about how amazing the person who created this method was. After a simple wash, Yi Tian went to Nanhai University. Although after Su Lai's affair, even if he doesn't go to school, what will happen to the teachers? After a few days, he has been used to the atmosphere of the campus, and going to school is the fulfillment of his wish that he didn't stay in school until graduation as his parents expected. Anyway, the aura level of campus and rental housing is similar, where to practice is not practice. To Yi Tian's surprise, when he comes to the dormitory downstairs and plans to go to the teaching upstairs with Shi Xiong, he sees Su Qing again downstairs. However, today's Su Qing has lost the noble temperament of the past. He has a disheveled head, dirty face, fluffy hair and red eyes. He looks like he was lost after crying all night. Yi Tian, my father is gone. See Yi Tian, Su Qing suddenly rushed over, a hug Yi Tian, a snivel, a tears of trembling voice. After her father died yesterday, she suddenly felt that her sky was going to collapse. Looking around, she felt that except Yi Tian, there was no one she could trust and tell her sorrow. I beg your pardon. Yi Tian looks at Su Qing's appearance and doesn't push her away, but his arms don't hold Su Qing's action, just light way. Su Qing didn't notice anything. He just held Yi Tian in his arms. His tears were like broken beads. After a while, he got the clothes on Yi Tian's shoulder wet. It seemed that he wanted to vent all the sadness in his heart. Yi, why don't I go to class first? And at this time, Shi Xiang also came out from the dormitory building, saw this behind the scenes, some embarrassed said hello. Thank you. When Su Qing heard other people's voices, he woke up from his sadness. He looked at Yi Tian and said thanks shyly and gratefully. After that, he rubbed his eyes, and then turned to walk out of the campus. Yi Tian looks at Su Qing's back and shakes his head. What Su Qing looks like now is really miserable. But who can blame for this? If Su Zhaoyan didn't sell his friends for a living, it would not have happened today. Of course, the main culprit of all these tragedies is Taemin, who looks on people's life and death as ants. Yi, what? It's not that you guys say you ha. Now that you have Ice Devil, Su Qing will let it go and give the boys in our school a little way to live. Shi Xiong waited until Su Qing left, and then he squeezed his eyes at Yi Tian with a look of resentment. Although Yan Bing has the title of Ice Devil, there is no doubt that he is definitely recognized as a goddess in the hearts of all the teachers and students. As for Su Qing, he is also a figure on the school flower list, with countless pursuers, but now, the goddess and Yi Tian are together, and the school flower, who had ignored Yi Tian, suddenly takes a 180-degree turn and sticks to Yi Tian. How can Shi Xiong not feel envious of others? You think so much. Go to class. Yi Tian shook his head with a bitter smile and said. Shi Xiong said that the two women, Ice Devil is pulling him as a shield, and he has no feeling for Su Qing. The reason why she didn't push away Su Qing just now was that she was pitiful. You, just wait to be the public enemy of the boys in our school. Shi Xiang curled his mouth and complained. Then he and Yi Tian went to the classroom. This is a modern literature class. When the teacher heard what happened yesterday, he was ready for Yi Tian not to come to class. But he was surprised and proud to see Yi Tian appear in the classroom on time. It seems that his class level is still very high, otherwise, why don't Yi Tian go to those classes, but come to his own class? In this way of thinking, he was very energetic in this class, and put out 12 points of strength, which can be described as both sound and emotion. It's a pity that his behavior is just a flattery to the blind. Yi Tian seems to be very attentive under the platform, but in fact, he has already begun to cultivate the idea of Sui Wang Temple, guide the aura of heaven and earth, and strengthen the shadow of the fire in the Dantian, hoping to break through the 3 layers of the cave as soon as possible.
Tian is no better than ordinary people like Su Zhaoyun. If they want revenge, if they can't be strong enough, they will die. Especially after yesterday's fight with Yan Zhouxiao, Tian's understanding of this point becomes clearer. The mountain people are really not strong, but if you despise these people, you will find yourself dead. Everything is inferior, only cultivation is high. Dudu, but just when the modern literature teacher was spitting on the platform and talking about a hot day, the open door of the classroom was suddenly knocked twice. Boom! As soon as the knock on the door rang out, when the eyes of the class fell on the people coming at the door, the classroom was like a frying pan, and the noise was deafening. At the moment, standing at the door, there is a famous girl in a light white sportswear. Her facial features are extremely exquisite, especially the pair of sword eyebrows, which adds a bit of heroism rarely seen in other girls. But the delicate facial features and the heroic sword eyebrows are not incompatible. On the contrary, they add a sense of moving and sacred contradiction to the girl, which makes her feel more attractive. What's more, it's because of the proper tailoring of the sportswear. The girl's long legs, which are extremely slender and straight, and the exaggerated length, are in line with the saying legs are all under the neck. There is no doubt that this girl's appearance is even more brilliant than Su Qing's schoolflower. If she is placed in Nanhai University, she is definitely the top of the schoolflower list. Excuse me, I want to ask, is Yi Tian in class here? I have something urgent to ask him. And at this time, the girl's eyes toward the classroom swept a circle, and then the voice clear way. Ning Shui? Yi Tian hears the sound and glances at the door. As far as his eyes can reach, he sees the girl standing at the door causing so much noise. It's not Ning Shui, who can be? Wow! Another beauty at the same time. When everyone in the classroom heard that the beauty was also looking for Yi Tian, their eyes immediately swept to him. Especially those male animals, the eyes of envy and hatred were like knives, as if they were going to swallow Yi Tian alive. Damn, Leaf, who is this? Not to mention other students, even Xixiang is silly, greedy looking at Yi Tian, Sour Road. Early in the morning, there is Su Qing first, and then there is Jian Mei Beauty. How can Yi's beauty be so good? Customers. Yi Tian also wondered why Ning Shui would come to find herself, so he ignored the murderous eyes of other male animals, gave a light explanation to Shi Xiong, and then looked at the modern literature teacher. Yi Tian, if you have something to do, go, and do it quickly. Seeing this, the modern literature teacher immediately looked at Yi Tian kindly and waved his hand. When Yi Tian saw this, he went straight to the door of the classroom in the envious eyes of all the students. Master Yi, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't venture to come to school to look for you. It's troublesome for you. But I really have something urgent. See Yi Tian out of the classroom. Rather Snow quickly apologized to Yi Tian, and then said, It's okay. You can tell me what you want. Yi Tian shook his head, light way. Master, look at this. Rather Snow Sea Leaf Day didn't blame oneself of meaning, this just relaxed tone, then spread out palm. What's going on? What's your big problem? Yi Tian looks down, and his brow turns into a knot in one's heart. See rather Snow pure white such as jade, the palm puts of, impressively is the fragment of a few peachwood amulet. These mahogany amulets are enough to help people offset the disaster of a small life. But now, 2 mahogany amulets that can be used 3 times have become fragments. Doesn't it mean that Ning Shui has encountered 3 fatal crises in a short time? Not me, but the daughter of a good friend of mine. Ning Shui heard this, quickly shook his head, and then nervously looked at Yi Tian, said, Master, you won't blame me for rashly taking the amulet you gave me to others? Since this thing is given to you, how to use it is your business. Yi Tian shook his head, and then continued, Are you going to buy some more amulets from me? I want to ask you to help me to see my friend's daughter, because the amulet has been broken 3 times, but she is still sick and there is no sign of improvement. Ning Shui shook his head and said, After using 2 peach amulets, the child's condition has not improved? Are you sure? The Leaf Day hears a sound, can't help a zhang, can't believe of looking at rather Snow Way. Although he was not so arrogant as to think how magical the peach amulet he made was, he was more than enough to help ordinary people save their lives.
But now, the effect of the two mahogany amulets is completely lost, and the little girl wearing the amulet is still not getting better, which really makes him unable to believe.
Yes, I'm sure that's why I hope you can go in person, Master. Ning Shui nodded heavily. Yes.
The curiosity in the leaf Skyheart at the moment also was rather Snow to hook up, then ordered to nod, way.
Thank you, Master.
Rather Snow smell speech, pretty cheek float up a touch of excitement, to Leaf Day repeatedly thanks.
Soon, they came to the school parking lot.
Although Ning Shui was a girl, she was driving a very aggressive Land Rover on the road. It seems that it's really necessary to buy a car of your own.
No matter where you go, you can save a lot of trouble. Yi Tian sees Ning Shui's car and is more determined to buy it.
It's just that the last time he sold Ning Shui a peach amulet, he earned 300,000 yuan. After buying those herbs, gas stoves and pressure cookers, there was only a little more than 200,000 yuan left. He couldn't afford to buy such a good car. After driving for an hour, they arrived at the gate of a villa on the outskirts of the city. After knocking on the door, a woman in a long white dress came out of the villa.
As soon as the woman came out, she left a deep impression on Yi Tian.
One reason is that the woman's facial features are exquisite, and she is really beautiful. The other reason is that the woman is almost 1.75 meters old. After wearing high-heeled shoes, she is even half a head higher than him, and has a supermodel-like temperament. As for the most important reason, the woman has a cold face, no smile, no expression, cold like a knife like wind in the lunar month. Compared with her, Yen Bing, who is called the Ice Devil by her classmates, is a small piece of broken ice from the popsicle. And from Yi Tian to now, she has no words or expression except glancing at Yi Tian.
Yi Tian secretly curled his mouth. Who can see this cold face? I don't know.
I think I owe you $28 million.
Master Yi, this is my good friend Ling Ruyu.
This is her character.
Don't mind.
Seeing this, Ning Shui explains to Yi Tian in a hurry, then pulls Ling Ruyu's clothes and says, Ruyu, this is Master Yi I told you.
I asked him to treat Ye. Master Yi, please come inside.
Hear rather Snow's words, the facial expression on the cold such as jade is slightly peaceful some, the side body is opposite Leaf Sky way. The woman not only looked cold, but also spoke colder. Her voice was like ice, which made people want to shiver.
Bring Ye and let me have a look.
Yi Tian walked into the living room, sat down on the sofa and said to Ling Ruyu. But the vision falls on the face of cold like jade, the brow of Leaf Day then wrinkled again.
The woman, Ling Ruyu, was frowning at his seat on the sofa.
She looked as if she was a beloved thing of her own and had been tarnished. This small eyes, as if in her eyes, Yi Tian is a dirty man who hasn't bathed for 10 years. For this facial expression, see Leaf Day all want a clap buttock to leave a person.
He's here to help, not to jam himself. Master Yi, if you has a habit of cleanliness, please forgive me.
Seeing Yi Tian's expression, Ning Shui sighs helplessly and says to Ling Ruyu, Ruyu, please hold the moon out quickly and let Master Yi help to have a look.
He is really powerful. He sold me the peach amulet before. Ling Ruyu looks at Yi Tian suspiciously. She is obviously hesitant.
But she thinks that Ning Shui's peach amulet really helps Ye to alleviate the situation. The heart of saving her daughter finally overcomes her discomfort.
She nods and walks to the second floor.
Master Yi, Ruyu is such a character, but I can guarantee that she has no malice to you.
Please forgive her for my face. After seeing Ling Ruyu off, Ning Shui looks at Yi Tian in praise. If it wasn't for your face, I wouldn't be here. Yi Tian shook his head with a smile and said. Rather Snow vomited tongue, I secretly aimed at Leaf Day one eye, Xiao cheek emerged two wipe red halo. Unexpectedly, I still have a little weight in Master Yi's heart. This is the moon.
A moment later, Ling Ruyu came down from the second floor with a little girl in her arms.
Why is this girl so thin?
Yi Tian looked at the moon, and his brow turned into a knot in one's heart. This girl named Ye seems to be 4 or 5 years old, but she is black and thin. It's not too much to say that she has only one layer of skin and bones.
It's a disfigurement. And Ling Ruyu took her downstairs and walked many steps. She didn't even blink her eyelids.
It can be seen that her mental state is extremely poor.
Can I give her a hug and examine her carefully?
Yi Tian reaches out his hand to Lang Ruyu and says.
Lang Ruyu hesitates and stares at Yi Tian hesitantly.
Then she hands the moon to Yi Tian.
This little girl is so light.
Yi Tian reaches out to take over the moon, and can't help but wonder. This little girl not only looks thin, but also looks as if her bones are empty because of the loss of blood essence. At this time, Lang Ruyu looks at Yi Tian warily. Her eyes are full of worry. She seems to be afraid that Yi Tian will bump into this little girl. This woman, cold return cold, but to this little girl, poor is really enough concern.
Looking at Lang Ruyu's expression, Yi Tian feels funny.
Then he carefully turns his mind and starts to look inside at Yaya's body, trying to find out the crux of her thin body.
Well, do you see anything?
A moment later, Lang Ruyu saw that Yi Tian just held Yaya and did nothing. Her delicate brow twisted into a knot in one's heart and said, if you can't see anything, give Yaya back to me. I can't see what. When Yi Tian heard this, his nose was almost crooked. In the past, in Fangsu and Lingyu, those people wanted to ask him to help and talk with each other, which was the most basic attitude. But now it's good, even if Lang Ruyu doesn't trust him, and her eyes are the same as those of a thief.
It seems that as long as she doesn't pay attention, she will steal Yaya. Even if this woman really cares about Yaya, she doesn't need to think she is a bad person. You can't see that it doesn't matter. I've asked many doctors and asked many people to help me. I won't complain about you. Give me back Yaya. Lang Ruyu shakes her head. She will take the moon from Yi Tianhui. Yaya was born on the 6th day of the 6th lunar month, right? After Yi Tian let Lang Ruyu take the moon from his arms, he looked at Lang Ruyu and said faintly. Lang Ruyu hears Yi Tian's words and is obviously stunned. Then she looks at Ning Shui. Don't look at me. I only know when Yaya's birthday is, but I don't know when she was born. Ning Shui waved her hand in a hurry, then looked at Lang Ruyu in surprise and said, Master Yi is right? Lang Ruyu doesn't answer Ning Shui's words. Instead, she frowns slightly and stares at Yi Tian tightly. It seems that she intends to see whether his words are random nonsense from Yi Tian's most subtle change of expression. Yi Tian is really right. Although Lang Ruyu didn't answer, from the expression on her face, Ning Shui immediately judged that what Yi Tian gang said was the truth. Let's go. The leaf day is blunt cold like jade light smile, then to rather snow way. His principle of dealing with people is very simple. If you respect me, I will respect you. If you are good to me, I will repay you. If you are in a good mood, you will be lazy to pay attention to you. If you are in a bad mood, you will slap me in the face. His attitude towards Lang Ruyu is at the stage of neglecting you. As long as you're willing to help me, you can make an offer. Lang Ruyu flashed to block the door, looking at Yi Tian, and said in a deep voice. Master Yi. Ning Shui didn't expect that things would develop to this stage. She stood up at a loss and wanted to say something nice for Lang Ruyu. You don't have to persuade me. I do things like this. I like things. I can help without money. I'm not happy. I won't do anything for $1.10 million. Leaf Day put to wave a hand, interrupted rather snow of words, light way. A million. Cold as jade, smell speech, slowly way. Yi Tian looks at her and smiles indifferently. Cold as jade, that pair of icy cold eyes. Toward Yi Tian swept one eye, the corner of the mouth peeps out more and more cold, meaning, slowly way, 5 million. Are you sure she's really your friend? Yi Tian turns to look at Ning Shui and laughs. Rather snow headache of feel forehead, a face rice smile can't expression, open mouth, a time but don't know what to say good, she is really didn't expect, the thing unexpectedly made this son. But she understood that Lang Ruyu was a cool character who had no interest in men, and even had a strong resistance to men, and Yi Tian's character was stinky and hard. When these two people meet, it's just like the tip of a needle to the wheat, whereas it's so easy to give in. 10 million. At this time, Lang Ruyu continued to offer, as if he wanted to use money to knock Yi Tian dizzy. Yi Tian doesn't say a word. He just holds his hands in front of his chest and looks at Lang Ruyu with ridicule. He seems to be watching a good play. He really wants to get some money to buy a car, but that doesn't mean he is willing to take any money. This is a bank's bearer check. You can withdraw cash as long as you fill in the amount. You can fill in how much you want. Lang Ruyu doesn't seem to think that Yi Tian is so hard to compromise. With a slight frown, she turns around and takes down a checkbook from the bookcase, signs her name on it, seals it, and hands the pen and paper to Yi Tian. Hit me with the money, right? Okay, I'll fill it in. Yi Tian took the check, picked up the pen, picked up an eyebrow and began to outline it. Lang Ruyu flashed a touch of disdain in her eyes. No matter how hard she was, she could not be knocked down by money. So much, can you cash it? At this time, Yi Tian throws the check to Lang Ruyu and smiles. This guy Lang Ruyu looks at the checkbook and almost doesn't get angry. See, Yi Tian is actually on the check brush, tick 1781, that long string of numbers, almost have thousands of trillions, although she is rich, but also not rich to such a degree. And not to mention her, even if the bank issued such a check, it would have to be withdrawn. How on earth can you help me? This time, Lang Ruyu's tone finally had some ups and downs for the first time, with a trace of anger. It's very simple. Aren't you a cleanliness addict? Let me use your toilet, and then let me go to your bed and lie down for a while, and I'll help you. Yi Tian coldly looks at Lang Ruyu and says with a smile. Lang Ruyu's eyes were cold, and a blush appeared on her cool cheek. I don't know whether it was because of Yi Tian's weather or because Yi Tian wanted to go to bed. Master Yi. Ning Shui tears and laughs, hoping that he can change his mind. Lang Ruyu is addicted to cleanliness. If Yi Tian really uses her bathroom and goes to her bed to have a sleep, isn't it worse than killing Lang Ruyu? It's about me and her. It's none of your business. Don't try to persuade me anymore. Yi Tianbai waves his hand and interrupts Ning Shui's words. In fact, he didn't feel so bad about Lang Ruyu at first. As long as the woman was nice, she would help her, but the woman should not, and she used a condescending attitude to smash him with money. If he wants to make money, he has a million ways to do it. Is it possible for him to smash these stinky money? Mom pain wow. At this time, the moon in Lang Ruyu's arms suddenly opened her eyes, looked at Lang Ruyu and said a word, then her facial features twisted together, tearing her heart and lungs up, tears like a broken line, pattering ceaselessly. Yaya, darling, mother is here, not afraid. Lang Ruyu hugs Yaya tightly and comforts her in a low voice. Her face is full of sadness. Looking at her appearance, it is obvious that this situation has not happened once or twice, but often happened. But Lang Ruyu's relief is of no help to Yaya. She shrinks in Lang Ruyu's arms, her whole body trembles with pain, and her facial features are almost wrinkled together, which makes her sad. Lang Ruyu looks at Yaya's appearance, 2 lines of tears can't help flowing down the corner of her eyes. Mom, don't cry, I don't hurt anymore. Yaya sees Lang Ruyu's appearance, biting her teeth and squeezing out a smile. She gives Lang Ruyu a word of relief with trembling voice. Then she raises her hand with trembling voice and wants to wipe away the tears from Lang Ruyu's eyes. Ning Shui turned her head to one side and tried not to see the scene, but her eyes were red. Give me the baby. Yi Tian looks at the picture, frowns and sighs. Then he goes to Lang Ruyu and reaches out his hand to take Yaya from her arms. Then he puts his hand on Yaya's pulse gate. A pure and incomparable magic power flows slowly into Yaya's body. Just a short time of 1 or 2 minutes, the original pain of the moon, eyebrows actually slowly spread out, his face filled with a big bright smile, looking at Lang Ruyu, said, Mom, I really don't hurt this time. He really has a way. Lang Ruyu stares at Yi Tian, almost can't believe her eyes. Every time this happens, it will take at least half an hour to get better. This time, it was just a minute or 2, there was no condition, it can be seen that Yi Tian's treatment is really effective. I'm looking at the face of the child. It's none of your business. At this time, Yi Tian handed the moon to Lang Ruyu, and then turned to leave. Master Yi, please help Yaya. Seeing this, Lang Ruyu twisted her brows together. After her eyes changed for a long time, she clenched her teeth. As if she had gathered all her strength, she said with helplessness and prayer, As long as you are willing to help me, I promise the conditions you just mentioned. Toilet, you can use it. Bed, you can sleep at any time. Long Ruyu agreed.
Yi Tian, surprised to see a cold jade, almost some can't believe his ears. He understood that it would be more painful to let a cleanliness addict make such a concession than to kill her.
And this is enough to see that Lang Ruyu's love for Yeye and the urgency of curing Yeye's heart. Please, help Yeye. Lang Ruyu looks at Yi Tian and pleads in a low voice.
At this moment, she has put down the so-called self-esteem, the so-called cleanliness addiction. What she thinks in her heart is only one thing, that is, to cure Yeye.
Yeye is a Purine constitution born on the 6th day of June.
Someone knows her birth time, stares at her, plants a Sha seed in her body, and then uses her to gather in Sha and improve her cultivation.
The human body belongs to Yang.
When Yin and Yang enter into the body, they collide with each other, which naturally makes people feel like someone is cutting their own flesh with a knife.
Now it's just the gathering period of Yin evil. When this kind of breath accumulates enough in Yeye's body, if Yang doesn't press Yin, Yeye will die, and the other party will come to take the evil seeds from Yeye's body and collect the Yin evil accumulated inside. Yi Tian glanced at Lang Ruyu and said faintly. Pure Yin constitution? Yin Sha? What are you doing?
Lang Ruyu and Ning Shui look at each other. They haven't heard a word of these words. But what Lang Ruyu can be sure is that what Yi Tian said should be the truth, because that knife cuts flesh is exactly the same as what Yeye said when she was awake. And Yang does not press Yin, small life whine a few words, but cold as jade, fragrant sweat, heart is full of panic.
Please, help Yeye.
What I said just now, it all counts. Even if you go to my bed to sleep now, I have absolutely no second words.
Lang Ruyu thought of this, without any hesitation, knelt down in front of Yi Tian and prayed.
In order to cure Yeye, she asked many famous doctors, but they were helpless.
Only Yi Tian, just a hand, let the month's symptoms have been alleviated.
So she understood that if there was a person in the world who could save Yeye, then this person must be Yi Tian.
Do you think your bed is so alluring? Yi Tian glances at Lang Ruyu and laughs.
He just put forward those conditions for the sake of disgust and coldness. He has no other ideas.
He is he.
But when Lang Ruyu heard Yi Tian's words, her face turned white, and her eyes were angry and embarrassed. Since sleeping in his own bed is not attractive to Yi Tian, doesn't he plan to sleep with him?
A person's specific birthday is a very private matter. Besides you, who knows the birthday of the moon? As long as we find out the person, we can find out the culprit. Where does Yi Tian know that Lang Ruyu has been thinking so much?
He just looks at her and asks. Although he is not a Taoist, he can't see the other side's vicious means of helping others with a little girl's life in order to improve their cultivation.
You didn't plan to. Lang Ruyu heard that Yi Tian didn't put forward more excessive demands. She was relieved and looked at Yi Tian in surprise. She couldn't help but say. What are you going to do? Yi Tian looks at Lang Ruyu suspiciously. Nothing.
Lang Ruyu was sure that she was thinking too much, and her cold cheeks were flushed. Then she hurriedly said, besides me, only the director of the orphanage knows. I also know the specific birthday of Yeye from him.
Orphanage? Yi Tianyi was stunned.
Yeye is not born to Ruyu, but a child she adopted from an orphanage.
She is not married yet.
Ning Shui hears the sound and explains to Yi Tian in a hurry.
This woman is kind-hearted.
Leaf Day surprised toward cold such as jade swept an eye. When he first saw Lang Ruyu, he felt that Lang Ruyu looked like a girl, not like the mother of a 4 or 5-year-old child. However, Lang Ruyu's love for Yeye was exactly the same as his loving mother. He thought Lang Ruyu was well maintained, so he was clearly a girl's mother, but she was as beautiful as a girl.
In this case, it's easy to do.
Call the orphanage director and ask him who he gave Yeye's birthday to, and the truth will come out. After Yi Tian finds out the reason, he looks at Lang Ruyu and says faintly. Even with his current cultivation, if he wants to dissolve the Yin evil in the moon, he has some power that he can't grasp. Therefore, the person who can solve the problem still needs the person who can tie the bell to find out the person who can use the moon to gather the Yin evil.
Okay, I'll contact President Wang right now. Cold as jade,
the teeth nibble at the vermilion lips, a touch of anger flits over the eyes, and the frost color on the face is thicker. Whatever the purpose of the orphanage director, he gave the date of the month's birth to the person who collected in Shah, but there is no doubt that it is a totally immoral act.
Change your tone and attitude. Don't be scared away by you before you find out the real murderer. Just say you want to invite him out to have a light meal.
You can think of the reason yourself. Looking at Lang Ruyu's indignation, Tian shook his head and said.
Lang Ruyu was embarrassed when she heard this, but she nodded.
She also reflects now that she just wanted to make a phone call to question President Wang's idea, which is indeed a bit reckless. And this also let her can't help but have some doubts. Tian's age seem not big, but how can the mind be so meticulous, and the trouble is so calm?
But she didn't know that Tian could be regarded as the second man.
In just 200 years of cultivation, he broke through the Jade Pu realm, which was not obtained by recklessness.
Lang Ruyu made a phone call and invited President Wang to the villa for dinner. The excuse she used was impeccable. She said that Ye's condition had improved and asked President Wang to come home to celebrate. This excuse, even Tian can't help nodding slightly.
If Dean Wang is just an accomplice who divulges the children's privacy in the orphanage for the sake of money, then naturally he won't refuse a request from a beautiful woman to invite him to dinner at home.
And if President Wang is the culprit, he will naturally have to find out if he hears that Ye's situation has improved.
This makes Tian have to sigh. The saying is true, the more beautiful a woman is, the more deceptive she is, even a cold and beautiful woman is.
And this also let Tian eyes a trance, face do lost, more Miss Ning Yao.
Ning Yao is the only beautiful woman in the world who won't cheat him.
Master Yi. Ning Shui looks at Tian's lost look in a trance and can't help wondering. Nothing. I think of some people and things. Tian Bai waved his hand and gave a smile.
Ning Shui nodded, did not ask what, but the fundus is full of puzzled. Just at that moment, she actually felt a kind of vicissitudes from Tian's eyes, as if she had read all the states of the world. This kind of look appears on a university youth's body, really lets the human feel strange.
Not only that, just Tian's manner, but also makes people feel sad. The beauty has an appointment. Dean Wang's action is very sharp.
Half an hour later, with a bottle of red wine in his hand, he came to the door of the villa.
These two are.
As soon as Lang Ruyu opened the door, Dean Wang, who was standing at the door of the villa, was stunned. He thought that he and Lang Ruyu were the only ones. At that time, Lang Ruyu would be in a good mood and let her drink more, so as to create an opportunity for him to taste the ice goddess.
Now that there are others in the room, isn't his plan a failure? Who do you want to inquire about? Who do you sell Ye's birthday to? Tian put his hand on President Wang's shoulder and looked relaxed. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dean Wang's face was in a mess, and then he said to Lang Ruyu, Miss Lang, since you didn't mean to invite me to dinner, I'll leave. After that, President Wang is ready to get rid of Tian's hand on his shoulder and turn to leave.
Bang!
Tian's eyes were cold, and his hand was like an iron hoop. He firmly held President Wang's shoulder. Then he suddenly pulled out the onion from a dry land, and pulled him up from the ground.
He fell heavily in the living room.
Then he closed the door and looked at President Wang, who had been thrown. He said coldly, come and go.
Do you think this is a hotel? Do you want to detain me? It's illegal.
President Wang fell to the ground, struggling for a few times, covering the pain to the bone, such as the cracked shoulder, pointed to Tian and cheered coldly.
I'm illegal. What can you do? Tian smiles coldly and says. Bang! Not only that, at the moment of the words, Tian flew up, right in the belly of President Wang.
This fat man, who almost has a weight of more than 80 kilograms, kicked up and hit the table heavily.
Bang! The dining table was knocked over and heavily hit President Wang.
With this crash, President Wang immediately collapsed on the ground and coughed up blood. Lang Ruyu looked at this scene in amazement, and for a moment, she was a little stunned. She really didn't expect that Tian's skill was so good. And look at Tian's current style, just to himself, really is already very polite.
Tell us what we want to know, and I can give you a way to live.
At this time, Yi Tian has walked leisurely to President Wang, who is pressed by the dining table. He looks down at his twisted face and says indifferently with a smile. He was not a violent person, but the orphans who were sent to the orphanage already had nothing. However, the Dean Wang still wanted to think of these children who had nothing.
What's the difference between such a person and animals?
What he has done now is regarded as kindness. If he put it in the square-inch spiritual realm, he would directly arrest the spirit of President Wang from his body. After torture, he would turn his spirit into ashes. That kind of pain is more than 10,000 times more terrible than the current pain.
I said. President Wang looked at Yi Tian in horror and trembled.
Yi Tian's ferocity makes him very surprised, especially after beating him like this. Yi Tian looks calm and indifferent, like stepping on an ant, which shows that even killing him is nothing to Yi Tian. At this moment, in addition to honestly tell the truth, save his life, or dare he have other ideas? A year ago, someone came to see me in the orphanage and wanted to buy the birthday information of the children adopted in the orphanage. I didn't think that information was useful, so I sold it to him.
I really don't know what he did with that information.
President Wang shuddered out the whole story.
No use? What else do those children have besides this information?
Lang Ruyu, with a frosty face, looked at President Wang and yelled angrily.
I know I'm wrong. Please forgive me. Wang Yuan did not dare to take a breath when he grew up. He just kept crying for mercy. What's the name of that man? Can you contact him? Yi Tian looks at President Wang indifferently. Light asks away. His name is Qin Fan Yuan and he lives in building A1 of Wanghai Villa on the outskirts of the city. President Wang nodded and said in horror.
Qin Fan Yuan went to him some time ago and bought a batch of information about the birthdays of the new children who came to the orphanage. Of course, even if he was killed now, he did not dare to say it. Let him lead us to Qin Fan Yuan, and the matter will be solved. Yi Tian can see that President Wang didn't lie, so he turns his head and looks at Lang Ruyu and Ning Shui, and says,
Aye.
As soon as President Wang heard that Yi Tian wanted to take them to Qin Fan Yuan, he immediately hesitated.
What? Do you want to go, or do you want me to invite you to take us? Yi Tian looks at President Wang with a cold smile. I'd like to. President Wang shuddered and nodded his head like a chicken pecking rice. Give Qin Fan Yuan a call and say that there are big customers selling information who want to come to visit him for an interview. Yi Tian looks at President Wang, light way. President Wang quickly took out his mobile phone and tried to bear the pain. He called Qin Fan Yuan. After 2 or 3 words, he nodded to Yi Tian and said, he agreed. Good. Yi Tian light smile, and then said, I go with him, you wait for me here. I'll go with you. Ning Shui hears these words, immediately way. Qin Fan Yuan is not an ordinary person. Yi Tian really didn't expect that Ning Shui had the courage to go to find Qin Fan Yuan with him. He frowned and said, You're not an ordinary person. Ning Shui smiles and says, I'll go with you. I'm sure it will be okay. What Yi Tian said before about Insha has made Ning Shui realize that Qin Fan Yuan is not waiting for idlers, but she believes in Yi Tian more. As long as Yi Tian is there, she is not afraid of anything. Let's do it together. Yi Tian's impression of Ning Shui was always good, so he nodded and said, Thank you. Lang Ruyu holds Ye and sends them to the parking lot. Looking at Yi Tian, she feels grateful. Make your bed soft. I'll have a good sleep when I come back. Yi Tian looks at Lang Ruyu and laughs. When Lang Ruyu heard this, her pretty cheek covered with frost immediately rose with a blush. Yi Tian looks at her shameful appearance, haha smile, then takes President Wang to get on Ning Shui's car. Ning Shui has good driving skills. In less than an hour, she came to Wanghai Villa in the suburb. The suburbs are not as rich as the urban areas. The distance between villas is very large. Villas are almost as close as a small manor. Every villa is separated by a grove, which is very private. When the car arrived at the gate of the villa, President Wang called Qin Fan Yuan, and the guard let it go. As soon as you enter the A1 villa area, everyone feels a sense of compassion.
The air seems to be cold all at once, making people feel cold all over. Rather Snow can't help but some tension, involuntarily to the leaf day by the side, feel that this is a little more at ease.
Mr. Tian, I've brought them.
After walking through the gate, President Wang rang the doorbell and said. Soon after that, the door opened and out came a thin young man in his 30s, pale as if he had no sunshine all the year round.
This guy's breath is even stronger than Yin Zhouxiao.
Just at first contact, Tian immediately felt the unique flavor of mountain people from Qin Fan Yuan. Immediately after that, he spread his mind and scanned the room to make sure that there was no one here except Qin Fan Yuan. $10,000, 10,000 messages.
How many messages did you bring?
If the quantity is large, I can give you 50 cents for each one. Qin Fan Yuan cold swept leaf day and rather Snow one eye, light way.
Mr. Tian, help me. They've come to find out about Ye. They've come to trouble you.
At this time, Dean Wang, who was pale all the way and his legs were shaking, rushed into the villa and hid behind Qin Fan Yuan, saying out loud what Tian and Ning Shui wanted.
Damn it!
Rather Snow hears a sound, in the heart a sink, turn ahead to Leaf Sky hope to go, see his facial expression as usual, this just slightly relaxed tone.
Trouble me?
When Qin Fan Yuan heard this, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he glanced at Tian and Ning Shui mockingly, playing with the taste, you can see my means, and you have some skills.
But I really admire the courage of both of you. You dare to come to me for trouble. Do you think it's too difficult to live in this world? Can you find me to relieve you?
Young Master Qin, kill both of them, otherwise, once things get out of the way, we will have no good fruit to eat. At this time, the head of the royal court also showed a vicious color and incited Qin Fan Yuan.
I have no good fruit to eat? Are you afraid you won't have good fruit to eat?
Qin Fan Yuan turned his eyes, looked at President Wang and said with a sneer, you dog are really useless.
You dare to cheat me and lead people to my place. Tell me, what do I want you to do for a dog like you?
Mr. Qin, forgive me. President Wang fell on his knees with a puff, his face as pale as paper, and his upper and lower teeth trembled with fear.
You're a piece of rubbish. I've revealed my whereabouts. I want to take back the evil seed in advance and start over in another place. Now I still want to live. Is all the shit in your head? Qin Fan Yuan cold smile, lightning like a foot, fell on the chest of President Wang. Poof. President Wang's mouth was full of blood.
After splashing Qin Fan Yuan's head and face, his eyes were wide open, and his breath was completely cut off.
You too, are you going to end it on your own? Or shall I help you?
Qin Fan Yuan looks down at President Wang's corpse, then reaches for a bit of blood sprayed on his face by President Wang, puts it in his mouth and licks it. After a strange satisfaction, he smiles at Tian and Ning Shui and says,
Oh.
Ning Shui, where has seen such disgusting abnormal scene, in the heart a burst of fanyang, almost did not retch.
Tian reaches out his hand to her back and gently pats her.
He enters a magic power to help her stabilize her mind.
Yes, it's a little daring. No wonder it's someone who dares to trouble me.
Qin Fan Yuan glanced at Tian playfully, then the corners of his mouth were full of sarcasm. He looked at Tian like an eagle looking at a chicken, and said contemptuously, if you have been scared out of your courage now, go away quickly.
I'm in a good mood and I can spare you from death. I'm not as brave as you.
If I were you, I would never have the courage to talk to me like that. Tian imitates Qin Fan Yuan's appearance, sneers, and then punches Qin Fan Yuan in the chest.
Haha, even you dare to punch me, I really don't know how to die.
Qin Fan Yuan gave a cold smile and raised his hand to block it. But before the word live was uttered, the cold and ridicule on his face turned into shock and horror. The hand that blocked him was knocked open by Tian, and then his fist hit his chest. Like a broken kite, he flew backward and fell heavily into the living room. At the same time, Tian pulls Ning Shui into the living room of the villa, and then takes the door with his backhand. The living room was full of all kinds of strange things, such as rotten coffins and some skeletons. It was not like a place to live, but a cemetery. It is obvious that these things should be the things that Qin Fan Yuan used to store in evil.
You're from the mountains, too.
At the same time, Qin Fangyuan, who fell to the ground, raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth and stared at Yi Tian, a little unbelievable.
I'm not from the mountain. I'm a higher man in the sky than the mountain people. Yi Tian sneers and pulls out the long whip from Yan Zhouxiao's back. With a shake of his hand, the long whip suddenly stretches straight, just like a long gun. He doesn't give Qin Fangyuan any chance to fight back, so he penetrates his right shoulder. Hiss. The pain of the skin made Qin Fangyuan cool down, and his eyes showed a touch of fear for the first time. After leaving Zhongmen and coming to Nanhai City, he didn't know what fear was, but now he finally felt the fear he had felt in Zhongmen. Just now he killed President Wang. In addition to that, waste cannot be used. Another reason is to scare Yi Tian. Can't expect, only frightened rather snow, have no any influence to Leaf Day. Not only so, but also let Yi Tian's means become more fierce and brutal, which really makes his face crack. You want to die. But the next second, Qin Fangyuan's eyes showed a touch of cold evil. He jumped up and punched Yi Tian. Hiss. As soon as Qin Fangyuan's body soared into the sky, there was a kind of cold breath spreading along his body. Ning Shui only felt that a flower in front of her was hypnotized. Looking around, there were a sea of corpses and blood, which was extremely terrifying. It's a small way to attack the mind by using the method of heresy. It's a pity that you've used the wrong method. Yi Tian is also a Zhang, immediately pick eyebrow a smile, Sui Huang view idea operation, a little mind release. Yi Tian's idea is clear and solid, just like the scorching sun. As soon as it appears, the cold feeling around the living room disappears. Pop. Next, Yi Tian suddenly raises his hand, throws out a whip, and jumps Qin Fangyuan with a ferocious smile to the ground. Qin Fangyuan fell to the ground and howled at once. Yi Tian's whip was like a thunderbolt. Sheng Sheng drew a half-finger deep bloodstain from Qin Fangyuan's forehead to his belly, and the blood gushed. Just for a moment, he became a bloody man. Who are you? It can break my Yin Sha attack. Compared with the severe pain of his body, Qin Fangyuan was even more flustered. Yin Sha attack is the secret of their Disha sect. The attack carries the power of Yin Sha, which has a great impact on people's mind. With this method, it is not impossible to kill people at a higher level. In Nanhai this year, he felt that his Yin Sha attack had been greatly improved, but now, just a face-to-face, he was broken by Yi Tian, and he didn't even receive half of the effect. How could he not be surprised? It's a joke if I can't get away from your heretical attack. Yi Tian looked at Qin Fangyuan with disdain and sneered. This means of attacking the mind with the external force of Yin Sha is just a small path. If he is practicing Sui Wangguan, he can't even clean up this small skill. It will make people laugh. Forgive me, elder. I'm a disciple of Disha's sect. In order to be promoted to Xuanji level, I came to Nanhai to look for people with pure Yin constitution and collect Yin Sha. However, I've only been here for a year and haven't killed them yet. Please forgive me, elder, because I haven't made a big mistake yet. Qin Fangyuan realized that he was really kicking on the iron plate this time. He could no longer bear the fear in his heart. With a puff, he knelt down in front of Yi Tian and knocked his head like a chicken pecking rice. He hoped that Yi Tian would raise his hand and let him go. Disha Gate? Are you going to blackmail me with a sect? When Yi Tian heard the word Disha Men, he gave a cold smile and said contemptuously, I dare not. As long as you hold high your hand, I will leave Nanhai immediately, and it will be deemed as if it never happened. Qin Fangyuan shook his head. But his heart's idea is that he really hopes that Yi Tian can see that Disha Gate is the top sect on the mountain. He can make peace, hold high his hand and let him go. If you leave the South China Sea, you will go to the North China Sea, the East China Sea and the West China Sea to harm others. With a faint smile, Yi Tian then said, Disha sect, a vicious sect, shouldn't exist in this world. He is not a so-called Taoist, but in order to improve his cultivation, the cultivator wants the innocent children to bear the pain like a knife. He really can't see such a cruel thing. You can't kill me. When Qin Fangyuan heard that Yi Tian didn't even pay attention to Disha Gate, he even said, Disha Gate shouldn't exist in the world. When he looked cold, he wanted to run away. Since I came here, I didn't intend to let you leave alive. Yi Tian smiles coldly, shakes his whip, and immediately attacks Qin Fan Yuan's back heart like a snake coming out of the cave. Whoa! Qin Fan Yuan only felt a chill in his heart. Even if he saw a whip with bright red blood in front of him, the next second, he felt that all his strength, like flowing water, suddenly overflowed along his chest. Then the world in front of him became dark and fell heavily on the ground. Blame yourself. Yi Tian looks at Qin Fan Yuan's appearance and smiles indifferently. Although Yaya has no accident yet, if Qin Fan Yuan is let go, with this guy's mental method, it's hard to guarantee that there won't be another month in other places. In those places, Yi Tian is not there. I didn't scare you, did I? Closely following, the Leaf Day thought of rather Snow is still behind him, then turned head to look at her to smile to ask away. I'm afraid, but you're not so afraid when you're around. Ning Shui nodded, but soon, she shook her head and said, but you're right. This kind of person is not worth dying. This girl is very brave, and the tone of her voice is similar to Ning Yao. When I was in Fengsu and Lingyu, I met a crisis. When I asked Ning Yao, her answer was not the same. But where is Ning Yao now? Does she miss her as much as she does? Hearing the sound, Yi Tian can't help thinking of a clear and familiar face. His mind is in a trance. At the same time, his heart is slightly bitter. Master Yi, what are you thinking? Ning Shui saw that Yi Tian's face appeared again. Before, when she was in Lang Ruyu's home, the vicissitudes of life made people feel a little distressed. She couldn't help but feel a little shocked and curious. Nothing. I just think of someone. Yi Tian heard Ning Shui's voice, and then he regained his mind and shook his head with a smile. He believes that no matter where Ning Yao is now, she must be thinking of herself as if she were missing her. Similarly, even if thousands of mountains and rivers are far away, Ning Yao is also doing her best to find a way to meet again. That man must be a girl, isn't he? Rather Snowgood's strange way, Funduses can't help showing a bit lost. Well. Yi Tian didn't find the difference of Ning Shui and nodded. I knew. Ning Shui hears this words, the look of the fundus of the eye is more and more lost, murmur in the mouth. She knew that Yi Tian was so excellent and young that she must have loved someone. However, what kind of woman can attract Master Yi to show such a look? What do you know? Yi Tianhu looks at Ning Shui suspiciously and doubts. 200 years of cultivation, his experience is countless, but women's heart, seafloor needle, this pass, he still did not participate in breaking. Nothing. Ning Shui waved her hand, then frowned and said, Qin Fan Yuan died here. Will it cause you any unnecessary trouble? Although Qin Fan Yuan committed heinous crimes and lived up to his death, he was also a human life. Once he was found, it was inevitable to find Yi Tian's body, which would cause him trouble. No harm. Yi Tian waved his hand with a smile, and then began to walk in the villa. Since Qin Fan Yuan has been in Nanhai City for nearly a year, he should have put all the things for cultivation here. Qin Fan Yuan was worthy of death, but the things he used for cultivation were innocent. If they were destroyed like this, wouldn't it be too wasteful? A moment later, Yi Tian walked around the villa. The rich harvest was beyond his expectation. In addition to the secret script of Dishaman practiced by Qin Fan Yuan, he found another Zuanlingdan, 3 Tiang Cinco, and more than 800,000 yuan in cash. With these things, Yi Tian's chances of breaking through the third floor of the cave are a little higher. And that more than 800,000 cash, Yi Tian directly gave half of Ning Shui. This girl is a neat temperament, just refuse, see Yi Tian attitude is firm, then also didn't polite with him, 2-1 make 5, 2 people then equally divided. With more than 400,000 yuan, Yi Tian feels that he has a place to buy a car. Of course, in addition to cash, elixir and Tiang Cinco, the things he can use most are ghostly things, such as unformed baby corpses, a number of moribund bones and shriveled corpses. Even if Ning Shui is already bold, but after seeing these things, they are all pale with fright. They run to the bathroom and vomit several times. But there is no doubt that Qin Fan Yuan must have been lying before. In this year of Nanhai, his hands must have been stained with a lot of blood, and he was carrying the lives behind several unruly cases. Since you like these things so much, let's turn them into fly ash together. Yi Tian piled all those things on Qin Fan Yuan's body.
After a cold smile, he went to the kitchen and turned on the gas stove. When the whole villa was full of strong smell of natural gas, he threw out a lighter. Boom! In an instant, the flame rose from the villa immediately. In just a few seconds, the bright red flames roared out of the windows around the villa and engulfed the whole villa.
Now it's clean.
Tian looked at the flame, turned his head and looked at Ning Shui, smiling.
Ning Shui's absent-minded for a while. I don't know why.
Seeing Yi Tiangong's action, she always has a feeling that this is not the first time Yi Tian has done this kind of thing. Yi Tian knows that after the fire gets bigger, someone will come and leave with Ning Shui in a hurry. All the way galloping, he took Ning Shui back to Lang Ruyu's home.
Well, is it settled?
Lang Ruyu sees that Yi Tian and Ning Shui are back and forth, and immediately asks nervously.
Is the bed ready?
I remind you that if it's not soft enough, you're breaking the contract. Instead of answering Lang Ruyu directly, Yi Tian looks at her and laughs. At this moment, Yi Tian is in a good mood and wants to tease this cold woman.
You. Sure enough, when Lang Ruyu heard this, she couldn't help showing a touch of shame on her frosty cheek. You've settled the matter. Yeah, we'll be fine in the future. But the next second, Lang Ruyu came back to her senses.
For the first time, she showed a flush of excitement and lost her voice.
Yes, the matter has been solved by Master Yi. After she won't have to bear the inhuman pain anymore.
Rather Snow Sea shape, smiled a cold such as Jade ordered to nod, way. On the way back, Yi Tian has already told her that the reason why Ye appears like this is that Qin Fangyuan secretly planted an evil seed in Ye's body. Now that Qin Fangyuan is dead, the evil seed will disappear slowly if no one controls it. Of course, the unmanned Sha species no longer have the ability to absorb Yin Sha, and the moon will not suffer from Yin and Yang in her body. Next, as long as you take good care of her, her body will recover as usual.
Master Yi, thank you.
Lang Ruyu was so excited that she bowed deeply to Yi Tian. Although Ye is not her own daughter, she has long been regarded as her real flesh and blood. Once upon a time, she thought that she and Ye would be separated from each other sooner or later, but she didn't expect that because of Yi Tian's appearance, she had already lost hope and really saw hope.
You have to thank me well. Yi Tian smiles and plays with the taste. I've made the bed. Master Yi, you can go to bed at any time.
Cold as jade, pretty cheek tiny a red, way. But this time, there was no more shame on her face.
Yi Tian can cure Ye, not to mention just sleeping in bed for one night.
Even if she sleeps for 1 month, she has no opinion. Of course, she is ready to change her house if Yi Tian goes to sleep.
I'm not that boring. I'm just teasing you for fun. Yi Tian waved his hand at will, light way.
The words he said before were just angry words, teasing Lang Ruyu by the way. He didn't really mean to go to bed with Lang Ruyu. But he is ready to defend himself for Ning Yao during her absence.
Lang Ruyu was relieved when she heard this.
She's used to living here. If Yi Tian changes her place because she's sleeping in her bed, it's really not suitable. Ye's illness is cured, but don't you plan to help yourself? I can not only cure Ye's disease, but also your disease. But at this time, Yi Tian suddenly looks at Lang Ruyu, laughs and says slowly.
What's wrong with Ruyu? Ning Shui hears the sound and looks at Lang Ruyu in astonishment.
She and Lang Ruyu have known each other for such a long time. She has never heard Lang Ruyu mention her discomfort.
Master Yi, you're joking. I'm in good health. I don't have any problems. When Lang Ruyu heard Yi Tian's words, she was stunned obviously.
But soon, she recovered as usual and shook her head towards Yi Tian.
That's probably because I've lost my eye. Yi Tian didn't point to break the cover of Lang Ruyu.
He gave a light smile, then looked at Ning Shui and said, the matter has been solved.
Goodbye. Master Yi, wait a minute. Please accept this.
Lang Ruyu hears Yi Tian's words and takes out a check from his pocket and hands it to Yi Tian.
5 million. Yi Tian takes a look at the check.
He nods and puts it in his pocket.
He deserves the money.
If it wasn't for him, let alone 5 million, even 50 million, 500 million, it couldn't cure Ye. His skill is worth the price.
I'll see you off.
Seeing this, Ning Shui follows Yi Tian to the door.
Lang Ruyu is young and has not married. How can she adopt a child?
Out of the door, Yi Tian seems to be very casual to Ning Shui asked with a smile.
I don't know. Ruyu went abroad a few years ago and adopted Ye after she came back.
In fact, she was not so cold before. She was very enthusiastic when she saw people.
Although she was a cleanliness addict, she didn't get to the point now.
Ning Shui shook her head, and then slowly said, but I really admire Ruyu.
When she adopted Ye, she had a quarrel with her family.
Moreover, many people privately said that Ye was Ruyu's illegitimate daughter, but Ruyu turned a deaf ear to these words and was very kind to Ye all the time, just like her own daughter.
Sure enough, Yi Tian heard Ning Shui's words and nodded slightly.
It is Lang Ruyu's present psychology that the more things can't be obtained, the more he wants to get. However, in addition to what she saw, Lang Ruyu's experience during her time abroad is probably the biggest reason why she has become like this.
Master Yi, is there anything wrong with Ruyu's body?
Rather Snow didn't find Yi Tian strange, but worried asked.
No, I should have lost my sight.
Yi Tian smiles and shakes his head.
Since Lang Ruyu didn't tell Ning Shui about it, why did she do it again?
That's good. Rather Snow smells speech, this just relaxed tone, but the facial expression is some hesitation. In her opinion, Master Ye's means are unpredictable.
How could he have lost sight? By the way, where did you buy your car? I also want to buy a car. It's more convenient no matter what you do. How can Yi Tian not find the suspicion in Ning Shui's eyes?
He turns away the topic and asks with a smile.
Master Yi, do you want to buy a car? Then I'll accompany you.
I happen to have a friend I know who is opening a 4S shop.
I can give you some discount at that time.
Ning Shui hears Yi Tian's words and says with a smile immediately.
Yi Tian nodded and did not refuse.
Although he does have money now, there is no reason why he doesn't use it since he can get the discount.
Wait for me.
I'll talk to Ruyu and take you to my friend's shop. Ning Shui smiles at Yi Tian and turns to return to the villa. A few minutes later, Ning Shui came out of the villa and drove with Yi Tian to the suburban South Ring Auto Market.
Master Yi, what kind of car are you going to buy? Do you have any specific needs? After getting on the bus, Ning Shui looks at Yi Tian's wonderful road. Don't call me Master Yi in the future. It sounds strange. Just call me Yi Tian. After waving his hand to Ning Shui, Yi Tianbai said, in fact, I just want to buy a walking tool.
It's better for me to drive in places with poor road conditions.
It's better to be masculine. Then buy the same model with me.
It's masculine, and it's just in line with what you said.
You can drive in places with bad road conditions.
Ning Shui thought for a while, then recommended his car to Yi Tian.
Yes. Yi Tian didn't do much research on the car.
He just sat in Ning Shui's car and felt very comfortable, so he nodded with a smile.
All right. Rather Snow Eye smile into two curved crescent moon, in the heart some small secretly happy.
Master Yi bought the same car with himself.
If you drive it out, isn't it a couple's car?
Half an hour later, two people went to the Land Rover 4S store run by Ning Shui's friend. After a test drive, Yi Tian was really satisfied with the car, but he didn't delay.
He made a decision and ordered one.
However, he did not buy the white model of Ning Shui, but bought a black model. This makes Ning Shui smile even more, black and white, perfect match.
Oh, isn't this our Yi Dishao? Why do you have time to buy a car today?
Did you win the lottery? It's just that Yi Tian gang just finished signing the contract? When the manager of the 4S store went to the back office to stamp the seal, several young people came in from the door of the store. When she saw Yi Tian gang, the young man in charge immediately showed a mocking smile.
Shanwei.
At the sight of the young man, Yi Tian's eyes were cold. Shinwei, one of Yi Tian's friends in the past, or in other words, Yi Tian's friend in the last life. When his parents were alive, Shinwei was respectful to him.
He was a very intimate Yi Shao.
But after his parents died and his family property disappeared, Shinwei changed his attitude and made fun of him. Even once, Shinwei took advantage of his eagerness to seek help and avenge his parents. He called him in the evening and asked him to meet at a KTV. When he arrived, he asked him to help serve tea and pour water like a little brother. He lost face in front of a group of so-called rich and young friends in the past.
Of course, although he lost face, Shinwei didn't fulfill his promise. Instead, he gave him 50 yuan as a tip. It was from that moment that Genius understood what a true friend is and what a friend is of the former. When you encounter difficulties, will stretch out your hand to pull you, even if you have no money, will do what you can, just like the bag of instant noodles given to him by Shi Xiong from a poor family. The latter, when you have money, you are the iron brother, the brother of life and death. When you have no money, I'm sorry, but in his eyes, you are a joke to the letter. If you don't step on you, you will be regarded as benevolent. I don't have time to talk to you. Get out of here. Yi Tianzhen didn't bother to pay attention to this disgusting thing. He took a look at him and said faintly, "Oh, we Yishao are really great.
This rich young temper has come back.
Let me guess, are you two back from the dead? Or have you finally found the legacy they left you?"
When Shinwei heard this, his face became cold. He stared at Yi Tian and said with a grim smile, "Brother Wei, don't make fun of me.
Where can a man come back from his death?
I think this boy has come here to enjoy himself.
I'll relive the feeling of being a boy in the past.
I feel sorry for the people in this shop. When they are busy, what they meet is not a customer, but a poor man who pretends to be a fool." Those guys behind Shinwei also know what happened to Yi Tian. When they hear Shinwei's words, they immediately laugh and mock.
Keep your mouth clean.
Yi Tianben doesn't want to have a common understanding with Shinwei, but when he talks about his parents, his eyes are immediately cold. But before he has any action, Ning Shui takes the lead and looks at Shinwei coldly and says in a deep voice. Although she didn't know what happened to Yi Tian, she guessed 7788 from Shinwei's words. Take other people's dead parents, to humiliate others, this kind of garbage, she can't bear.
Oh, I don't know. We Yishao have found a girlfriend to support us now. Tell me, what do you like about Yi Dashao? Did his parents die early, or did he have no money? Beauty, don't be cheated by him. This guy is poor now. If you want to find a child, you'll find the wrong person. Why don't you consider me?
Shinwei was stunned, then shrugged and looked at Ning Shui with a smile.
Then he looked at Yi Tian mockingly and said, "Yi Shao, do you want to revenge your parents? As long as you give me the girl around you, I can consider helping Bang."
But before Shinwei's words came out, Yi Tian coldly raised his leg and kicked Shinwei 2 meters away.
This kind of rubbish can't understand people. It's up to him to reason with him.
Yi Tian looks at Shinwei, who is paralyzed on the ground, holding his stomach and howling miserably, and then laughs at Ning Shui.
Yi Tian, do you think you are still Yi Dashao?
I tell you, if you want to avenge your parents, you poor man will never think about it. If you dare to beat me, I'll play you to death. Shinwei listens to these words, covers his stomach, looks at Yi Tian and grinds his teeth. If you haven't experienced everything in Fengsu and Lingyu, what's happening now may be what you want to experience. When Yi Tian listened to Shinwei's words, he could not help feeling deeply. Fortunately, he is no longer Yi Tian in the past, but Yi Tian who had practiced Taoism for 200 years and became a great monk in Yupu realm, known as Emperor Dan. Now he has the strength to change everything in the past. Of course, he is even more such as Shinwei. For him in the past, high above, humiliated can only swallow his anger, such as ants in general step on the foot.
It's time to forget about the old and the new. Otherwise, how can we live up to this heavy life? Kill me?
The next second, Yi Tian's eyes flashed, with a playful smile on the corner of his mouth, walked up to Shinwei and said, "Since you said that, I can only play you to death first."
Pop pop pop. Yi Tian falls down, squats down, grabs Shinwei's collar, raises his hand, and throws a dozen slaps in the face.
Shinwei's nose bleeds, his cheeks swell up like steamed bun, and his back teeth come out several. "It's the dead of your dirty mouth." After more than a dozen slaps, Yi Tian slowly puts down his hand and looks at Shinwei, who has been slapped with all kinds of meat and vegetables.
"I can't spare you. I'll kill you." Shinwei's mouth is very hard.
Even if he was drawn like a pig, he said angrily.
No way, in his opinion, Yi Tian is poor now. Even if he can fight a little, what's the use? Now has the final say in the money, not the fist has the final say. Can the goods be played again, 10?
The mouth is so hard, it seems that it is still not in place, but just in time, I still have some interest to charge you.
Hearing this, Yi Tian smiles and grabs Shenwei's arm. He gently pats and twists his elbow joint, and then a crackling noise explodes. Hissing.
With this sound, Shenwei, who had a hard mouth the second before, immediately widened his eyes. His forehead was covered with sweat, his mouth was wide open, but he could only make a sound like a poisonous snake spitting a message. At this moment, he just felt that there were millions of insects crawling in the bones of his whole body. The pain and itching of heart drilling and bone etching were not what people could bear.
Isn't your mouth hard? Why don't you talk now? Yi Tian asked Shenwei with a smile.
Seeing this scene, the people who followed Shenwei originally wanted to help, but now they stopped one by one and looked at Yi Tian in horror. They just felt that the smile on his face was no different from the devil. Please give me a break, I was wrong. Shenwei was crazy, rolling on the ground, whistling with pain and grabbing with both hands. In just a few seconds, he was scratched with nearly 100 bloodstains all over his body. This kind of itchy and painful feeling, simply life is not like death.
Don't you want to kill me? How could it be wrong?
Yi Tian looked at Shenwei with great interest and said with a smile, I haven't had a good time yet.
There are 99 and 81 moves in this set of hand tricks.
I only use one move now, and there are 80 moves waiting for you to enjoy.
There are 80 more moves.
Shenwei was almost scared to pee when he heard this. He knelt down on the ground and kowtowed to Yi Tian and said, Yi Xiao, please forgive me.
I'm wrong. I really know I'm wrong. It's just a move. It's not fun. If you insist, let me have more moves to have a good time.
Yi Tian put out his hand and patted Shenwei's pig face, and said with a smile.
I've been addicted to your sister. I'm going to be killed by you.
Shenwei wanted to cry without tears. He swore in his heart. In order to relieve the pain and itching, he hit his head heavily on the ground twice. But even if he hit his head with blood, he didn't feel any better. He begged, please forgive me.
I really know it's wrong. I'll never dare to do it again. Let's have a fight. Don't you know my character? I said I'm going to kill you. I'll lose if I kill you.
Yi Tian sneers and does the same to Shenwei's leg joints. With one move, Shenwei felt the pain doubled immediately, and his whole body collapsed on the ground. His mouth was as wide as a dehydrated fish, but he couldn't make any sound. Yi Tian does not say a word, just quietly looking at Shenwei at the moment. More than 20 minutes later, Shenwei's hands and feet twitched, his crotch clattered, and a pool of stinking yellow water came out.
After that, he was completely tormented to death. He's not a man, he's a devil.
As for the group of people who followed Shenwei, they were standing in the same place, their legs were trembling. No matter men or women, their backs were soaked in cold sweat. They looked at Yi Tian in horror. They want to escape, but Yi Tian didn't say anything, but they didn't even dare to move, for fear that they would end up with the same fate as Shenwei. Mr. Yi, the contract has been settled, because you bought this Range Rover in full, so the later insurance and so on will be borne by our store. At this time, the manager of the 4S store also dealt with the contract and came out. When he saw this behind the scenes, he was stunned.
Yi Tian is really here to buy a car. And I bought a full Range Rover. Isn't this guy poor? Why are you so rich all of a sudden?
The manager of the 4S shop said something, and those who had been scared looked at Yi Tian with more surprise than fear. They all know that after Yi Tian's parents passed away, his family property disappeared.
This guy has been destitute. Otherwise, Shenwei would not dare to treat him as a joke again and again. But now, where did this guy get the money to buy a car?
And take out so much money all of a sudden, the money that shows Leaf Day hand, affirmation still has more. Kneel down, kowtow and apologize, then take him with you, get away, and don't let me see you again. At this moment, Yi Tian's depression has almost been vented, and he says to the group of people who follow Shenwei.
Yi Xiao, we're wrong. We're looking down on people. Please don't have the same opinion with us. We should be damned. We are wrong.
Please forgive us, Yi Xiao. On hearing Yi Tian's words, the group of guys immediately like amnesty, in a hurry put on their knees, tearful toward Yi Tian repeatedly kowtow.
Go away.
Yi Tian toward this group of guys coldly swept an eye, a wave hand, way. Words fall, the group of guys immediately picked up Shenwei from the ground, like rabbits, ran out of the shop.
I'm sorry to have soiled the floor of your shop. But don't worry. I'll pay for the cleaning.
Yi Tian turns to look at the manager of the forest shop and says with a smile.
No, I'll take care of it later. Mr. Yi, you're very kind. Here's the contract for the purchase of the car. Take it away. We'll transfer the goods now. You can pick up the car in a week.
The manager of the forest store shakes his head repeatedly, and then hands the contract to Yi Tian respectfully. See, just those guys such as the appearance of amnesty, where does he have the courage to let Yi Tian out of the cleaning fee? Of course, even if there is no such thing, only with Yi Tianxuan's purchase of the car, he gets the commission that can wake up in his dreams. Even if he lets himself wipe the floor with a rag, he has no opinion.
Good. Yi Tian nodded and left with Ning Shui.
After leaving the forest shop, Yi Tian found that Ning Shui always looked at herself strangely, with a desire to talk and stop.
If you have anything to ask, don't hesitate. Yi Tian looks at Ning Shui's appearance and says with a smile. That guy just said that your parents seem to have been hurt. Is that true? Ning Shui hears these words, then doubts away. Yi Tian's skill and ability is the strongest person she has ever seen. Last time Yi Tian said that he was from the mountain. How could the parents of such a strong man be harmed, killed, or even taken away? All this can't help but let Ning Shuixin be curious. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked.
But as soon as the words are out, Ning Shui knows that she has lost her words. She is suspected of deliberately poking Yi Tian to hurt her heart.
She quickly waves her hand and says, "It's okay.
It's meaningless to avoid what has happened, and there's nothing that can't be said." Yi Tian shook his head with a smile and said, "At that time, I didn't have the ability to protect them. The biggest regret in my life is that I can't go back in time, otherwise, I won't let this happen." With the words falling, Yi Tian's eyes are even more disappointed. After living a new life, he thought more than once, if only he could return to this life before his parents left. Unfortunately, such a thing can only be thought about. Yes, I also hope to turn back the clock. I also want to see my parents again. Ning Shui, whose parents died early, could not help feeling bitter after hearing the speech. She nodded, then looked at Yi Tian and said, "But I believe that with Yi Tian's ability now, you can help your uncle and aunt get revenge and let them die in peace under the Zhochuan." "It will." Yi Tian nodded heavily, then looked at the front and said, "That day, it won't be too far away."